Welcome to the Game of the Year 2025. So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be ranking all 114 games that we've played this year. We're going to be ranking them from DNF, means I didn't finish it, to pure trash, to I don't recommend it, to I do recommend it, to I highly recommend it, to a brand new category called Must Play, which I had to make because there were so many games this year that I thought qualified for GOATed, greatest of all time. I'm going to give you my ranking of all 114 games. I'm going to put them in their categories, right? And then at the end, the games that are sat in GOATed, I will choose one to be my game of the year, and then all the others I will put to a vote for you guys, for you to choose your game of the year. Last year, I chose Baldur's Gate 3, and you chose Hi-Fi Rush. We're going to go month by month. I tell you, it has taken me so many attempts to get this in the correct order, but I've got the games in the order, month by month, that we did. The months, for those who don't know, we had Cozy Game Month, Romance Month, which is kind of like half a month, but whatever. We had Marathon Month, where we marathon through different game series. We had Assassin Month, which was majoritively Assassin's Creed, but there was Dishonored and stuff in there as well. We had Sci-Fi Month. We had Indie Game Month. We had Animation / Tie-In Game Month. So it's like anything that ties into like cartoons or comics or books or whatever. We had a little bit of randomness. Retro Month. We had Spooky Month. We had Venba. We also have the Final Fantasy games that we've been playing. Start with Cozy Game Month. We had a lot of games for Cozy Game Month. We had 13 games for Cozy Game Month, unless I've miscounted. The first game we're going to look at is A Short Hike. It was very cute. I liked it a lot. I would recommend it. A Tiny Sticker Tale. I didn't realize that this was absolutely aimed at kids. If you have a kid, this game, honestly, I'd recommend it. It's cute, it's innocent, it's a nice little puzzle game. You got a little book where you get like stickers out and you put them in the world to like solve puzzles and stuff. It was very cute. I liked it. Alchemist Simulator. So Alchemist Simulator was much more like being on a set of rails than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like a cozy game where you run your own alchemy store and you like sell to people and stuff like that, when in actuality it was very much a very rigid storyline and you had to complete certain potions. There was no freedom really. There was a lot of freedom where I could serve customers and stuff like that. I think I'd rate it higher. But I'd recommend it. I wouldn't highly recommend it. I wouldn't say it's meh. I did enjoy it. But it was good. Coffee Talk. Coffee Talk is actually going to be our first DNF. I did not finish Coffee Talk. I'm going to be honest. I got bored. I will say, not every DNF is because it's bad, right? It doesn't mean it's bad. DNFing means all sorts of different things, right? So DNFing Coffee Talk wasn't because it was a bad game. I just found it a bit boring. I feel like this is a game that works better off stream than on stream. I think part of the issue was that I was on stream playing this. It very much was like a reading simulator, essentially. Considering you're meant to be running a coffee shop and like listening to people's stories and stuff like that, I made a tremendously small amount of coffee in the amount of time that I played. I think I played for about 2 hours, and I made about 3 cups of coffee. Which were all like very much you hit this button, you're done kind of thing. Like it was almost arguing like that it wasn't actually a game, it was a visual novel, but they put enough game elements in order to make it a game. Next is a game that I can never pronounce the name of correctly because it's a place in France and I don't speak French. Dordogne was actually kind of like a good example of something that's going to appear a few times. A lot of the games that we played, especially for Cozy Month, were trying to be artistic instead of trying to be a game. There's quite a lot of games at the minute that are just basically like an art project that have like slapped on a bit of game elements so that you can like argue that it's a game rather than a bit of art. Whereas Dordogne, I feel like, or Dordogne, or however you say it, I feel like it was a nice, healthy balance between storytelling and art and actual gameplay. Speaking of art that takes itself too seriously about being art and forgets that it's a game, Paradise Marsh. Paradise Marsh, I don't recommend it. So Paradise Marsh was very preachy to me. It's kind of like it was okay. The whole gist that we picked up quite quickly is that you're kind of in like a limbo kind of state, you know, where like you're kind of, we couldn't figure out if we died or not, but like it seemed like we were in limbo. But then the ending just went full like preachy about the value of life and the meaning of the world and all that kind of thing. And we just saw that, okay, you are not a good enough game to preach at me. So for that, I don't recommend it. Slime Rancher, however, I do recommend. Slime Rancher was a lovely game. Slime Rancher was a little too open for me, so I like cozy games where you like run a farm or a business or whatever. But for me, Slime Rancher was the kind of cozy game that I'm not too overly fond of, where like you just do, like you're not sort of told how you can do stuff, you just have to do it. And the story is there, but you have to actually go and find it. And it's not really story, it's just like signposts that you read from the person who ran the ranch before you. So it's a good game. I just would have liked a bit more emphasis on story. Speaking of nice games, though, that absolutely nail story, Spirit of the North, I highly recommend. Spirit of the North was a game where you play as a fox and you have to solve puzzles and stuff, and there's like a spirit version of a fox that you're following around and everything. It is beautiful storytelling with absolutely no words, really. I don't think... Are there any words in the game? If there are, it's from the occasional, like, humanoid interactions you have. It's such a beautiful story. It's told so well. And the ending is just... I would highly recommend Spirit of the North. It's not a long game. It won't take you long. I think it only took me about 8-9 hours, I think. Let me get YouTube up so I can have a little look, see how long these took me. It took me 4.5 hours. So, you know, it's 4.5 hour game if you don't go for the completionism. I can absolutely see myself wanting to do the completionism, though. Like, go back and collect all the things and get this platinums, because it was a really fun game. I really liked it. We couldn't have a cozy month without playing this absolute legend of cozy games, Stardew Valley. Like, Stardew Valley, to me, is an absolute must-play. It's an absolute must-play. It's not goated. It's not goated. It's not greatest of all time, in my opinion, but it is a must-play. If you like cozy games and you've somehow not played Stardew Valley, play it. We have another DNF here with Summer in Mara. It was boring. Honestly, it was boring. I wasn't at any point going, oh, this is loads of fun or anything. Like, I got bored, right? And I played it for an entire stream before and then started a second day before I was like, do you know what? No, this is just boring. I put like 5-6 hours into this and I'm bored. Tunic is a must-play. I really, really dislike Souls-likes, right? The Souls-like genre, I'm not a big fan of it. There are some games that have managed to impress me from that genre, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of the whole smashing your head against a brick wall until you break the wall down, right? And learning patterns, doing the same fight over and over and over and over and over and over and over, right? Tunic has that, but I felt it was far easier to sort of learn from your mistakes. I loved the little things like having the old school like PS1 manual in there that you had to find the pages for and complete, and it gave you clues. I just loved it. I thought it was really good. I thought it did the Souls-like genre justice and made me kind of more willing to try Souls-like games. And as a result, for the rest of the year, I did try a few others, and some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. But Tunic has to take like the award for being the first Souls-like game that I actually enjoyed. So I think it's a must-play. I think it's a must-play. If someone who doesn't like the genre liked it, it says a lot, right? We've only got 2 more cozy games to go. Next is Unpacking, which I put in highly recommended. I highly recommend Unpacking. I thought it was just going to be a little puzzle game where like you rearrange a room and you like stack things and stuff like that. Turns out it has a story, and if you actually are paying attention to what you're doing, you pick up, like we picked up, that actually there's stuff going on. This is a person's life that we're going through, and we're seeing like failed relationships, going to college, their new start, their new career. We're seeing all this kind of stuff, and it was so clever. I'd never seen a game before that told you a story through unpacking boxes. It's just so so random a concept, and yet it was done so well that I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. I saw on the ad of the year, sorry, the Game of the Year awards, that at the very beginning, there's a joke of it in my review of it that's on YouTube. There's a joke of I make where they go like, oh, now for a game that you've never seen before, sort of thing, and go like, oh, it's Unpacking, but we're in first person, right? It's Unpacking has clearly inspired a few different games. I'm here for it. I think it's an interesting take. We'll see what other games are like that, but yeah. The last game for Cozy Month is Venba, which I was not expecting to like, and I did. I liked it because I thought this was going to be another artsy game where they're trying to be artistic and forgetting that this is a game. They didn't forget. There was a lot of storytelling, a lot of art going on, but there were also quite a lot of nice moments of like experiencing the game dev's culture through like cooking the meals and learning about the mum's recipes and stuff like that. I thought it was charming. I thought it was nice. So I'd recommend it. I think it's a nice short game. It did not take me long. I don't think it was very long at all, actually. Venba was UVW. Venba was 1.5 hours. So I mean, it's not long. I think it's still on Game Pass. So yeah. I will say, on other platforms, I played it on Game Pass. On other platforms, it's a little pricey for my liking. I don't know how much it is on Steam. I'm just opening up Steam now to have a look. I don't think it's worth more than £5-10. In fact, I wouldn't even say 10. I think it's like a £5 game, honestly. Let's see, Venba. Okay, so Venba has gone down in price since the last time I looked. It's $6.39 at the moment, which is a random price. To be honest, even then, I'm not sure that it's worth that. I'm not sure that it's worth that, but it's an okay price. For an hour-and-a-half game, $6.39 is still a little high for me. Xbox, it's $14.99. Yeah, definitely don't pay $14.99 for it. If it's ever on sale for like five or less, get it. It's a nice, charming little hour-and-a-half like moment of your life, you know. We get to move on to the very short month that we had now of Romance Month. So February was going to be all romance games. And then they were rubbish. We had so many romance games in February that were bad, spoiler alert, that we basically decided to end it early. So there are don't get me wrong, there are some good games from this month, but there were so many that were rubbish. So we're going to start with Florence. And I'd actually recommend Florence. I liked Florence. It was a nice game. It was cute. It was one of those, again, of art or story. Romance Month was worse than Cozy Month for games that were more art than game. And Florence was one of those games, kind of like Dordogne, that it was the right amount of art and game, that it was enjoyable. It wasn't hard. I wouldn't say I was particularly challenged. It was definitely focusing on the story, and there were little bits of game elements in there. I'd still recommend it. I think it was fun. But this is definitely at the bottom of my recommended. However, Storyteller is a must-play. Storyteller was the puzzle game where it was like classic like fairy tales and similar-ish fairy tales and stuff, where you had to like put the characters in the right position to tell the story correctly to finish the level. I had so much fun with that game. I 100%ed it. If I ever 100% a game, it's because I loved it. And so Storyteller for me is a must play. I don't think it's goated. I don't think it did anything that like broke like traditions or like created a new thing or anything like that, but I think it was a must play. And that's kind of how I've distinguished goated. If something has managed to make it into goated, it has done something that I'm there going like, wow, that was insane, or that was such like a massive like improvement on what already exists, you know. So that's how I've had to discern what goes to must play and what goes to goated. Stardew elevated Harvest Moon, right? Tunic elevated Souls-likes. Storyteller, thank you, Cactus. Storyteller elevated like puzzle games for me. But they didn't make me go, wow, that's the best blank I've ever played, right? That's the best cozy game I've ever played, or that's the best puzzle game I've ever played. They didn't do that, so they don't get into goated. Anyway, from must play all the way down, 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 down to pure trash. Our first pure trash game of the year is Love Choice. Love Choice is like an indie game made by, I want to say it was like a Chinese game dev or something like that, because it has Chinese characters in it, so I'd imagine it's from China or the surrounding area that speaks Mandarin. But what can I say about Love Choice that isn't mean? Nothing. It's terrible. It is a horrendous game. It is truly horrendous. What we found was it was a game that broke its own rules by telling you had to do certain things and then throwing in little other things that you had to do. But that in itself wasn't the thing. The big issue with Love Choice was that they were trying to argue that these were love stories, right? These were love stories about like a man falling in love with a woman and then asking her out on a date. There were 3 stories. So there were 3 stories. There was a man at like a game creation convention or whatever, and he meets a girl and he fancies her and he asks her out on a date and everything. And you have to plan their dates to have the biggest success, right? We failed at that so many times. Yeah, that, Dan, yeah. We failed at that so many times because what I didn't realise was that first story, for this first love story, you had to go into her social media and stalk her online to find out the things that she liked in order to take her on the correct date. You had to stalk her social media in order to find out the right things for her date, right? Second story was when stalking's being taught, right? Second story was 2 childhood friends or something like that. They were like high school sweethearts or something like that. She moved to, I think, America or France. She moved somewhere abroad, right? She moved abroad somewhere. And the correct ending to this story was, that was the piano one, yeah. The correct ending to that story was to manipulate her, make her feel bad, and guilt her into giving up her dream of living and working abroad to move back to live with you so that you can have a family together. That was the whole thing. I'm not exaggerating. You had to manipulate her and make her feel horrible for pursuing her dreams and to give those up and to come back and have a family with you. That was the second story. The third story of this trilogy of hate was you had to... you were the wife this time, right? You were the wife. Your husband goes in the shower, right? And while he's in the shower, his phone rings and it's a woman on the phone, right? And if you choose to answer it, because it turns out the good ending, which we'll get to in a minute, was just to ignore the phone, right? If you choose to answer, end the call, you don't answer it, you end the call, right? So that he doesn't know that he's had the call. You start suspecting him, and you start looking for clues for adultery and cheating. You start looking and you find all these things. Except it turns out he was planning an anniversary gift for you, where you suddenly feel like an awful person, right? And the correct, true way to have that story was to just turn the phone off at the beginning and just ignore the fact that that a woman from work had called him. That was the correct way. Just ignore the fact that a woman that you don't know is calling your husband. That was the correct ending. So that was the 3, right? The 3 love choices that you could make, right? And that's why that's pure trash. The only reason why it doesn't go lower is because I don't have anything lower. If I had a category lower than that, I would put it there. But it's pure trash. It was basically a how not to be an adult in a relationship, right? 3 times as well. I taught you 3 different ways to not be in a relationship. So, great. It Takes Two, however, It Takes Two is goated. Boom! Like, literally, we've gone up, down, and slingshot our way back up to the top. It Takes Two is our first goated game. It Takes Two is our first goated game. It was so freaking good. It takes the whiplash, right? The whiplash of Conan. That February was a wild month. It was a wild month. It Takes Two was one of the best games I've ever played because it took the co-op experience and elevated it. Like, co-op games are kind of disappearing, although I can see they're starting to come back. But this dev company, I can't remember the name of the devs, but they are very quickly becoming a dev company that I 100% trust, right? I trust that their game is going to be good. Hazelight, thank you. Did I play with my partner? Yes, I played with Random. Yes, I played with my work wife, Random, other Matt. I played with him. So yes, we played it together. It was hilarious. We loved it. We did some truly horrendous things to an elephant. It was one of the best games I've played all year. It's one of the best co-op games I've ever played. It Takes Two is pure goated. That book needs to go die in a hole. Split Fiction is definitely on my list of games to play, and I want to play all the other ones in their catalogue because It Takes Two was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of phenomenal games, Okosan! Okosan Pudding! You did get back in time for Pigeon Game, Brooksy. Hatoful Boyfriend with Okosan and his search for pudding. We love Okosan. So for those of you who weren't here for this absolute joy of gameplay, welcome to Hatoful Boyfriend, where we romanced birds. It was a pigeon dating sim, as I called it, and then I realised there were other things than pigeons in the game. But it was a bird dating game, and it wasn't like a bird dating game where you were a bird as well. You're a human who's into birds. And it's a weird sort of like parallel universe where birds are the things that have evolved into being like highly intelligent, and humans still live in caves. Because at the end of every day I'd go back to my cave and dream of my bird lovers. It was hilarious from start to finish. Absolutely hilarious, right? It's not goated because I don't feel that level of degeneracy can go anywhere near Game of the Year. It's not allowed, I'm sorry. But it is one of the funniest games I've ever played. It's a must play. Let's go to gym class again and see Oko-san. Game of the goddamn year. Welfare check for the devs. Oh no, it's an amazing game. Some guy had a weird fetish and somehow unintentionally made a great game about it. I went into Hatoful Boyfriend thinking that it was going to be just pure cringe and horrible. And bear in mind, we'd had so many bad games before we got into this game, and I was there going, oh no, we got the pigeon dating game. And within about 20 minutes, I was in love with this game. It was so good. It was so unbelievably good. We were all loving it. It was yeah, it's amazing. Oh, absolutely amazing. Anyway, DNF. Sling. Boom 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 boom. Oh my god. So yes, we go back to the bottom of the pyramid. Yeah. With it's called Amelie. Yeah, Amelie. Which basically Amelie was Hatoful Boyfriend restream when do all the other paths. Amelie was a reading simulator that was so insanely boring that it was a visual novel pretending to be a dating sim. I played for like an hour and I just cried and closed the game because it was so boring. It's basically fanfic for something that I don't think exists. I think they just created their own universe and put their own fanfic in it. It's bad. It's bad. If you like visual novels where like it's like you read it and occasionally you might get to interact with it, fine. But it's boring. It's boring beyond belief. Absolutely boring beyond belief. Justice for Pigeon. Right, it was so goddamn awful. It was so bad. I put my all into trying to make it funny, right? Whenever I'm reading stuff, I will try to make it entertaining, right? Because Pokemon famously, for example, it's all like text. There's no voice acting, right? So I have to put my own spin on it and everything. After about 30 minutes of Amelie, I just gave up and I was just reading monotone because it was so boring. So whereas Coffee Talk, I just wasn't that interested in it. Summer and Mara, it was boring for me. Amelie was just bad. It was just bad, right? It was just a bad game. Now we have A New Life, which is our last one of Romance Month, and it's meh. It's meh. It's meh. We've slingshotted up and down. We're going to settle in the middle for the end. It's just meh. It was just a meh game for me. It was same sort of idea as Florence. You make choices, and like those choices lead to different romance outcomes and stuff. Except for the fact that they're all bad endings. They're all bad endings. There is no happy ending in this game. Not one. There's like 8 or 9 different endings, and every single one of them is a bad ending. And I'm not joking. Like, they're all bad endings. It's not like it's subjectively a bad ending. They're all bad. They're all bad. It was clearly made by someone who, I think they were grieving from someone they lost in COVID or something, because it happens during COVID. There's no good ending. The correct ending has one of them dying of COVID. So I mean, they went for realism. I get that. But the game was very meh for me. Your choices didn't make a lot of difference, honestly. So yeah, how do you remember each game when you played 114 of them? Good memory. Are you ready for Marathon Month? So we're going to be covering multiple games from the same series, because that was what Marathon Month was. We've got the Bioshock Trilogy plus the DLC for Infinite. We've got the Fable 2 and 3, because I'd already played Fable 1 and the new Fable hasn't come out yet. We've got the reboot Tomb Raider Trilogy. And then we've got the Assassin's Creed franchise up until Black Flag. Bioshock. Bioshock 1, for me, was an absolute must-play. It was an absolute must-play. Bioshock did something for me that I wasn't really expecting. It took like an Orwellian sort of like parallel sort of future sort of thing and made it really, really interesting. I was not expecting to enjoy Bioshock so much. I wasn't expecting the whole "Would you kindly" thing. I wasn't expecting any of it. I went into that game completely unaware of what was going on, other than the big daddies and stuff. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was an absolute must play. A lot of fun, lots of twists and turns. It was great. It was genuinely just a great game. Just an absolute great game. But would you kindly, right? Bioshock 2, on the other hand, I would highly recommend. And actually, the entire rest of the series goes into highly recommend. So Bioshock 2, Infinite, and the Burial at Sea DLC all go into highly recommended. So for me, Bioshock 1 was the best. I know it's debated with people as to which one was the best one. For me, Bioshock 1 was the best. After that, these are all equally as good. I'm going to move Unpacking below them, because I think Unpacking wasn't quite as good. I do think Spirit of the North was better. That's all I'm going to say. So Bioshock 2 was an interesting twist to have you there being the big daddy and all that kind of thing. I liked it. It was a cool story. I felt the storytelling wasn't as strong as the first game. The third game, which isn't Bioshock 3, as loads of you kept pointing out, it's Bioshock Infinite. It's not Bioshock 3. It's the bloody Assassin's Creed Brotherhood people all over again. Bioshock Infinite was good, but oh my god, they towed that line of what's acceptable to say and what isn't. I know Bioshock is meant to be a social commentary thing, and so I got it and I understood. I let it slide. But Bioshock Infinite was definitely very much leaning into the racism of that time period and all that kind of thing. And I know you're meant to feel it, but I felt very uncomfortable playing it at times. But yeah, it was a good series. It was a really, really good series. The Burial at Sea DLC, I played that because you guys insisted. It tied the game into a great knot, yeah. The Burial at Sea DLC, you guys insisted I should play it because it ties up all the loose ends between 1, 2, and Infinite. And it was absolutely worth it. I loved it. Because up until this point, I kind of been like, why is Infinite part of this universe? It's kind of... I see why you're saying it's not Bioshock 3, because it's definitely a spin-off, and then Burial at Sea tied it all together. And so that was one of the instances where you were all like, no, you have to play the DLC. And I listened to you, and I'm glad I did. because it was so good. But I didn't play the Bioshock 2 DLC or anything like that because it's not necessary. I tend to not play DLC unless I've truly loved a game, or you are just adamant that I should play it. Fable 2 and Fable 3. Fable 2 goes into highly recommend. I highly recommend Fable 2, and I also highly recommend Fable 3. Fable 2 was a big step up from Fable 1 in my opinion. Fable 1 was nice, but there wasn't a huge amount you could do. Fable 2 really broadened what you could play, what you could play as, what you could do, what combinations you could have, and all that kind of thing. Fable 3 I personally think is better than Fable 2, so I'm going to put it above Fable 2. Fable 3 to me is just the best of the trilogy. It's an unpopular opinion. Most people think 2 is the best from what I've seen, at least from what you were all saying in chat. For me, Fable 3 is the best one. I love the storytelling in 3. I wish it was a little longer for all of them, honestly. But for me, the whole trilogy is spectacular, and I'm so hyped for the new Fable game that's coming out. We'll skip over 4 next year. Can't wait for Fable 5. Technically, there is a Fable 4. That's why they've said Fable 5. There is technically a Fable 4, which I plan on playing at some point. It's a Connect game. It's Fable Journey. Fable the Journey. It's a Connect game. It's pretty awful. I will play it at some point. It is bad. The Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. So I had never played a Tomb Raider game before. I'd learned later, after the fact, from people that Tomb Raider is meant to be just ridiculousness in terms of, like, of course there's a tsunami. Why wouldn't there be a tsunami sort of thing, right? I didn't know that going in, so I was in for a wild ride. So, yeah, the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy, which is Tomb Raider, which is like the third or fourth game to be called Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So, the original Tomb Raider, well, the original of the reboots of Tomb Raider, I actually highly recommend that. I highly recommend it. I thought it was a really good game. I really enjoyed it. You liked the first game, Dan? I liked it. I thought it was really, really good. I loved the crafting in it. I loved the searching around for the treasures and everything. I liked the actual tomb raiding that I did. Although I was surprised the tomb raiding was a side thing, I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I could see myself taking my time with that game more if I'd been playing it on my own, right? I thought it was a nice game. So imagine my surprise when we saw the other two, which was Rise of the Tomb Raider, which, I mean, I recommend it, but may I just point out that this gem of a game here is the game that introduced the Nutter counter to us. So the Nutter counter, which is the counter that we have now, where every time we play a game and we see something that we go, Nutter, we add a point to the counter.
Nutter. The fuck you mean, nah?
This was the game that added it, because within the space of the first 20 minutes, we'd gone, nah, like 8 times. So we added it. It's not a spoiler because it's right at the beginning of the game. It's literally the opening cutscene of the game. You climb a mountain. Not only are you climbing the mountain in the wrong order because the really heavy guy is leading the way instead of the really light woman leading the way so he can maybe catch her. You climb the mountain completely wrong. You cause an avalanche. You get swung at high velocity into the side of the mountain, and all of this leaves you unfazed. Then when you get to the bottom, you fight a bear and you win. So fist fight a bear, may I point out, and you win. So yeah, the Nutter counter was born through this game. I'd recommend it just for the ridiculousness alone. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, however, the third one, is just meh. It's meh. The only good thing about that game was Polygon Lara. Polygon Lara, which was a skin that we had in the game that put on the PS1 sort of like skin of Lara Croft, when she was like all polygons and everything. That was the only good thing about that game. When you couldn't breathe, yes, that was the only good thing about that game, was the skin that you could put on. The rest of the game was very boring, very mediocre. If it wasn't for that skin, I may have DNF'd it. Yeah, Triangle Bobs, yes, I may have DNF'd it if it wasn't for that. That got me through quite a rough patch in the game. It's sad but predictable, I suppose, to see a series go from the first game being the best, then the second game, and then the third game. It's the typical way of trilogies, right? The last of the trilogy is normally the worst. But it was meh. It was just meh. But that did technically end Marathon Month, and we technically went into Assassin Month at that point, which was all these Assassin's Creed games, and Dishonored, because I wanted to play something that wasn't just Assassin's Creed. I didn't want it to be Assassin's Creed Month, I wanted it to be Assassin Month, so I threw in an extra Assassin game there. I love that you didn't remember anything that was said because you were crawling on the floor, struggling to breathe from laughing. Yeah, that was very fun. That was very fun. I didn't listen to any of that conversation. I was just dying on the floor laughing. That's the only reason why I didn't go into Don't Recommend or Pure Trash, because I had fun with the Polygon Lara. If I hadn't had fun with Polygon Lara, it would have gone into Don't Recommend or Pure Trash. I'm going to ruffle some feathers here. I'm really going to ruffle some feathers here. So, we had Assassin's Creed 1 first, which I learned is notoriously hard to get hold of. It's quite a hard game to get hold of. It's not a very popular game, apparently, at least by Ubisoft. Ubisoft don't seem to like it because they've never remastered it. It's not available on their app, Ubisoft Plus. All the other Assassin's Creeds are, but not Assassin's Creed 1. So you either have to buy it secondhand like I did, or play it on Steam, except the Steam version of the game runs like absolute trash. Yeah, parkour. But it runs like absolute... You can't even parkour. It runs like absolute trash on Steam, to the point where I got about 20 minutes in and I had to stop and wait a couple of days for the 360 version to turn up for me. So, a notoriously hard game for me to actually get around to play. So it's actually a shame then that I don't recommend it, because it's so bad. Like, it's, for its time, good game. Now, bad. It is aged like a fine wine that's corked. It's at one point, it was probably very, very nice. Very, very nice game. Very nice bottle of wine. But ever since getting corked through age, it's a don't recommend for me. I just didn't find it entertaining. I didn't like it. It was very janky. It had the growing pains of a new series, except for the fact that Prince of Persia existed before it. Right? Prince of Persia was also made by Ubisoft. Like Sands of Time and stuff, I think came before this. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But they had all of that. I don't see why this game was so janky. They had the bloom up to 1 million, but it was good. You really love the plot. Yeah, the plot. Yeah, like that final boss fight where all you had to do was like beat the boss, except don't get hit, because you get hit once, you have to restart the boss. Great. Prince of Persia was before. Okay. Sands of Time was on PS2. Okay, so yes. So they had Sands of Time, and then they somehow made it jankier. I don't really know. But it was a good game. I just don't recommend it. The only reason why I would say to play Assassin's Creed 1 is if you're doing what I'm doing, where you're working your way through the entire series, right? And you want to see beginning to end, right? You want to see beginning to end, so you want to see the whole series, because there is a continuous storyline up until a certain game. There's a continuous storyline up until a point. There's a continuous storyline. So yeah, that would be the only reason to play that, is you want to either pure nostalgia, or you want to see the beginning of the story to go through, right? You just have fond childhood memories of it. Yeah, nostalgia will carry that a long way. It'll carry it a long way. Assassin's Creed 2, however, slingshots into highly recommend, and it doesn't just sit there. No. It goes all the way up here. It goes all the way up here. Assassin's Creed 2, this is when you found me. Assassin's Creed 2 was everything that 1 should have been, and good job to them for doing that. Good job to them for seeing the errors and the mistakes and the problems with their game and fixing it in the second one. It was just enjoyable from start to finish. I loved it. The same absolutely can be said for Brotherhood and then Revelations as well. All three get into that slot. They're all going to sit nicely there. The Ezio trilogy is incredible. Ezio's the GOAT video game character. The whole trilogy is spectacular. You follow Ezio's life, like from him being a youth. Like I think he's like 19 or 20 or something at the beginning of this. I don't know how old. He's really young at the beginning of this one. And he's an old man in Revelations. He's 16. There you go. So he's 16 at the beginning of this, and he's like in his 50s, I want to say, at this point, towards the end. It's a great story. It's really well told. It does screw up the numbering order, because technically this is the 3rd and 4th game, but it's not called 3 and 4. But yeah, I thought it was really, really good. I thought the whole storyline was great. I love what they added in Brotherhood. I liked that they continued it in Revelations. For me, Revelations is the weakest of the three, because it felt like it wasn't as fleshed out as the others. but it was more story focused. It still had the ridiculousness of Assassin's Creed with like the carriage chasing and like using the kites to like Da Vinci's kite plane thing glider to like fly into the party and stuff. It was great. It was silly. But yeah, I agree. Revelations should have been DLC, but don't forget at the time DLC wasn't really a thing. This was still the time of expansion packs rather than DLCs. Unfortunately for me now, I then played the American Revolution game Assassin's Creed 3, which I've called it the American Revolution game Assassin's Creed 3 because that's the order in which they prioritize things. What I said when I was playing this was they wanted to make an American Revolution game, but they didn't have a series that it would fit with, so they went, oh, I'll just put Assassin's Creed into it. Right? So, like, it felt like an American Revolution game first, an Assassin game second. And unfortunately, it just wasn't interesting enough to make that a good thing. Because, ironically, the next game also does the same thing. But we'll get to that in a second. Assassin's Creed 3 was just meh for me. Connor was an okay character. I didn't really vibe with him. I didn't really sort of like get him. I also feel like the big issue with Assassin's Creed 3 is it should have been 2 games. It should have been 2 games. What they should have done, because originally you play as his dad first and then you play as him, right? What they should have done is it should have been 2 separate games where you play as the dad first, you have the twist as the ending, you know, that big twist that we won't talk about, that you have the big twist with him, and that's the end of that game. Then have the next game, Assassin's Creed 4 essentially, right, be you playing as Connor so you can flesh him out more. It was such a problem to me that half of the game was one person and the other half was another person. I think it would have been a phenomenal like duology if they'd split it. Right? If they split it, I think it would have been infinitely better and more fleshed out. You love it, that's fine. You love it. This is all subjective, right? This is all my opinion. It doesn't mean it's correct. It's my opinion. But for me, I feel like it was 2 games mushed into one that should have been 2 separate games that fleshed out a bit more. However, Black Flag is a must-play. Black Flag is a must-play. Not only is it a must-play, but it skyrockets all the way up here for me. Black Flag did the exact same thing as Assassin's Creed 3, where it went, hey, we want a pirate game, let's just make it Assassin's Creed, right? Except they did it right, because you can still be an assassin, you can still play the game exactly as an assassin if you want to. Everything that you do, you can do in an assassin-y way, right? You can board the enemy ships and be sneaky and go up onto the sails and stuff and drop down, assassinate people. You can take over ships by swimming over to them, climbing up on them and assassinating people. You can go through the plantations, hiding in the bushes, assassinating the guards and stuff. You can still be an assassin in the pirate game, right? And not only that, it's so fleshed out. There's so much free roam. There's so much stuff to do that I loved it. And I loved it so much that I gave you guys a goal to make it so that I had to do all the collectibles. You hit that goal like that, and we did all the collectibles. And I loved every moment of it. I loved every moment of it. It's one of the best games ever made. Not an Assassin's Creed game, though. It is no less an Assassin's Creed game than Assassin's Creed 3. It's no less an Assassin's Creed game than Assassin's Creed 3 for me. I would say about the others, but I don't know because I haven't played them yet. Rogue is the next one that I'll be playing. We'll see. We'll see how it goes going forwards. Biggest downside of Black Flag was the sheer amount of tailing missions. That's always been a thing, though. Tailing missions have always been a thing. They just weren't in boats, so they weren't necessarily as obnoxious. Dishonored, I highly recommend it. I'm actually going to stick it above Tomb Raider. I highly, highly recommend Dishonored. It really, really upset me to see how few people watched Dishonored, right? Whenever I play these games, I keep an eye on the view count. I personally don't care how many people are watching me, but I keep an eye on the view count to get a general sort of feeling of how much people like this game. It was one of the worst turnouts I've ever had for a stream, because nobody seems to care about this game, and I hate that, because Dishonored is amazing. It is pure stealth. It is so much what Assassin's Creed wants to be, right? It is so good. It has a horrific rap. I don't understand why. I've not looked into it, but like Dishonored is so good. There's Dishonored 2. There's a like a spin-off mini game. I want to play all of them. I thought it was phenomenal. I highly recommend it. If you've never heard of it or never played it and you like stealth games, play it. It's so good. It's a gamer game. It's a gamer game. Yeah, you're right. It's a gamer game. It was so broken when it released. I was never able to kick that. Wasn't that a very difficult achievement to actually go through the passive route? Yeah, there's an achievement to not kill anybody in an assassin game. Right, the whole series was good. I don't know why people crap on it. I don't get it. But like, it was one of my worst performing streams of the year just because nobody wanted to watch Dishonored, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why. I genuinely don't. It's such a phenomenal game. But yeah, that was the end of Assassin Month, and I loved the ending. I loved the ending of Assassin's Month because I got to play Dishonored for the first time, and I loved every moment of it. But we then moved on to Sci-Fi Month, and Sci-Fi Month was very, very full, which brings us on to Fallout 4, which I actually highly recommend. I highly recommend Fallout 4. Fallout 4 for me is a highly recommended game. The only reason why I can't put it as a must-play or higher is because Bethesda don't know how to make a functioning game. They don't know how to make a functioning game. For me, I loved what they added. I loved the base building aspect to it and stuff like that. I loved the customizing of the weapons and all that kind of thing. I like that. For me, they're lucky I put them in highly recommended. Let's put it that way. I was tempted to put them into recommended at the top of recommended. And I still might if you can convince me, because it was so broken that like from launch, like every Bethesda game, that I almost feel like Bethesda don't deserve to be at the top of the table. But I think it's a great game. I haven't played 3 or New Vegas yet, but I've heard they're better. But we'll see. You need mods to play, so knock it down. Do you know what? I will put it to the top of recommended. I will put it to the top of recommended simply because that is an exceptionally good point that I had to mod it in order to get it to play the way I wanted it to play. So yes, I put it to the top of recommended because I had to mod it to get it to play the way I wanted it to play. I still think it should be at the top of recommended. I still think it's better than all of these, but the fact that I had to mod it in order to make it more enjoyable is yeah. Because I modded Stardew, but Stardew was like quality of life things, like adding characters to the map. Fallout, I had to like mod it in order to do the things that should have been base game. Next, we've got Brotato. And I feel like if Fallout 4 is dropped down to recommended, then I need to put you up to highly recommended, because you were going to be recommended. But I highly recommend Brotato. Brotato was so freaking good. I'm going to put it above Tomb Raider. Brotato was so freaking good. It's a roguelite where you play as a potato and you have to survive wave after wave after wave after wave. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every moment of it. I don't think it's a must play. I don't think you're going to miss out on anything by not playing it. But I would highly recommend it, especially if you like roguelites. They just released the DLC as well. I know Twit's been playing the DLC. Always got it at least. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm going to save the Halo games until the end of Sci-Fi Month, because technically I played the Halo games over multiple months. I just played them on like Mondays with random. And so I'm going to save those. I'm going to move on to the rest of Sci-Fi Month. We're going to come back to Halo. We're going to come back. Rotato as a whole community addicted for a good week. Yeah, we were all addicted to it, yeah. Only one go to the like 5 months in. Oh, don't you worry. There's plenty more. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Jedi Fallen Order is a must-play, and it rockets to the top of that list. It's an absolute must-play. It's kind of a Souls-like. It's so unbelievably good. I'm not a Star Wars fan. I've never been big into Star Wars. I've seen the movies, I've watched the TV shows, but I've never been like, yeah, Star Wars. And yet I was absolutely addicted to this game, to the whole series. I was addicted to the whole series. It was phenomenal. The storytelling was incredible. It was the right level of difficulty, I felt, for like everybody. Everybody could sort of pick that game up and play it. Lovely difficulty scaling based on the difficulty choice you make. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was amazing. Survivor, boom, goated, absolutely goated. They took everything that was amazing with Fallen Order and they made it better. How did they make it better? How do they make it better? The only reason Fallen Order isn't in GOATed as well is because I was like, I can't really have the same... Like, I can't have the 2 games from the same series in GOATed, so I had to choose which one was worse. And so I put Fallen Order down into must play. Like, that's the only reason. Otherwise, that would be sat there. Otherwise, that'd be sat there. Because the reason why is because I felt like when it came to the voting time, if the majority of you wanted to vote for the Jedi games, you would split your votes between the 2. That's the only reason. Survivor was great. I'm so salty that someone ruined the twist ending for me before it came. I kind of saw it coming as the story was progressing, but I'm salty that someone ruined it for me. But even with it, the ending ruined for me, I still adored that game. It's one of the best games I've ever played. Yeah, the whole series was a nightmare for mods. Like, mods were banning people left and right who were coming in and spoiling the storylines for these games. So thank you to my mods for doing that. But I love that series, and I'm so glad they're getting the 3rd one. I'm so glad it's going to be a trilogy. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to the trilogy being complete. The Gunk was an indie game for the month where it was two people landing on a planet that's like polluted, and like we try and clear the pollution and everything. It was an interesting indie game. I'd highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's definitely at the bottom of my highly recommended. It could arguably be put into the top of recommended. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was original. I thought it was a nice idea. I liked the storyline. I liked the idea of like a society collapsing, and we get to see the hubris of that society and what not to do and all that kind of. I liked it. I thought it was really cool. I will say it was a little bit janky with the controls, but I'd still highly recommend it. Just know that it is an indie game, and so there may be some gameplay issues. But I mean, if Fallout's allowed to have gameplay issues, I think an indie game's allowed to have gameplay issues, you know? The Force Unleashed is a DNF. I DNF'd The Force Unleashed. To be honest, I think at the time I just wasn't in the mood to play it. The controls had not aged well. I didn't like how it felt to play. I hated that I was getting stuck on the environment constantly. I have been considering going back and trying it again, but like trying it and Force Unleashed 2 again. But we'll see. It wasn't necessarily that I hated the game, I just hated how it felt to play. If I'm feeling a bit more generous, I may go back and try it again, but I'm only going to do it if I'm like, you know what? Let's give it another go. That's the only reason why I'd go back to it. It wasn't a bad game, it was just played badly. Space Marine, not 2, the original Space Marine. I recommend it, and it's going to go around about there. So, Warhammer 40k Space Marine, not Space Marine 2 that came out this year, the original. I played this one to try and play Space Marine 2 this year, but then budgeting reasons why I couldn't argue spending £50 on a brand new game. I was kind of hoping it'd go down in price in the sales and everything, and it didn't really go down enough to justify getting it. So I'm going to hold off on playing Space Marine 2 until the price is a little bit more reasonable, in my opinion, because it's a 9-hour game. 9-10 hour game for Space Marine 2. I don't really want to spend $50, $60 on a 9-hour game, you know. But I played Space Marine 1. I liked it a lot. It was a nice, fun game. It was definitely a love letter to the Warhammer fans. I think people who don't know Warhammer could still enjoy playing it, so I'd recommend it, but I wouldn't highly recommend it, because you definitely need to have some kind of an idea about the Warhammer lore, Warhammer 40k lore, in order to really enjoy it. If you're a casual player who doesn't know anything about Warhammer 40k, you'll enjoy it. You'll really enjoy it if you're a Warhammer nerd. I will play Space Marines 2 eventually, when the price comes down. But I can't justify $50, $60 for a 9-10 hour game. I can't justify that. Boltgun, which is the like Space Marine 1.5, I DNF'd it. Not because it's a bad game. It's not a bad game. Boltgun, unfortunately to me, think of old school Doom, like the original Dooms, where you got like the first person mode with the gun, you're going through the dungeon sort of thing, killing everything in sight, right? That's what it is. It was boring. it was fun to begin with, but then it just got it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over. The only thing with Boltgun was you work your way through a level, you get a little bit of text lore, like a little blurb of lore, and then you go to the next level, which is slightly harder, but it's still just shooting everything in sight. And then you get a little bit more of a blurb of lore, and then you go to the next level, which is a little bit harder again, and you go again, and you go again, and you go again, and you go again, and it was the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And if you like that kind of thing, that's fine. For me, I get bored quickly of that kind of thing. So I may go back and do it in my own time, or maybe I'll film it off stream or something. But for me, it was just I wasn't in the right frame of mind to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over for about 8 hours. The Outer Worlds, all the way up to highly recommended. I'm gonna put it above Bioshock Infinite. The Outer Worlds, to me, is everything that Starfield wanted to be. Starfield by Bethesda was like, it was literally, they saw the Outer Worlds and went, oh, dang, we need to do that. So the Outer Worlds was made by the people who made Fallout New Vegas. They also made Knights of the Old Republic 2 and stuff like that. The Outer Worlds is a phenomenal game. It's short, but it's a phenomenal game in the same sort of style as Bethesda games, right? Starfield was Bethesda, and it was everything that you expect in a Bethesda game. It was janky, it didn't work properly, they were too ambitious with what they were doing, and they didn't make sure that the things that mattered worked, you know? It was loading screen after loading screen after loading screen. The Outer Worlds has loading screens. Of course it does. But the Outer Worlds was just so much more enjoyable. The dialogue was witty. It was funny. I was laughing at some of the dialogue. You guys made me do the evil route, because I played this game before, but I'd never done the evil route, and you guys made me do the evil route. It was our first ever evil playthrough of any game on stream, and we loved it. It was fun. So yeah, the Outer Worlds was phenomenal. I'm really hyped for the Outer Worlds 2. I hope it's bigger and more impressive than the first game, but still works really, really well. The Outer Worlds, I still hold, is the best example of how to have inclusivity seamlessly in a game, right? Because there was a bit of everybody in there, right? Like, name a demographic, they were there, right? But they were there naturally. They were seamlessly there. They were just part of the ecosystem as they are in real life, right? You had LGBTQIA plus people just living their life, doing their thing. You had minorities, although I suppose they're not minorities in the game, but you had ethnic minorities just living their life, doing their thing. You had different religious groups living their life, doing their thing. They were all part of the ecosystem, which for me, that's how a game should be. It shouldn't be shoving things down your throat and like, hey, look at the inclusivity, look at the inclusivity. They should just be going, oh, this person is bisexual, or this person is one parent is this, one parent is that. Like, that is how it should be done. The Outer Worlds nailed it. Not so much other games, but the Outer Worlds for me is what other games should be looking at and going, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it. For me. Right, unfortunately, I do have to tell you now, we do have to do Halo. So it's time for Halo, or also known as You Were the Chosen One, as you will see in a moment. So Halo I played over the course of the year, and I wrapped it up with Sci-Fi Month, because I played it co-op most of the way through, right? Observe as I descend into madness. Halo 1, I would highly recommend, and I'd actually put it really high. I think the original Halo is an absolute classic that absolutely should be played. It's an example of the evolution of first-person shooters, especially sci-fi first-person shooters. It takes everything that things like Doom and Quake and similar games like built on, and elevates them in the sci-fi genre. Great game. Great game. Halo 2, for me, I would recommend it, but I don't think it's as good as people remember. What I found interesting about the Halo series was, as I was playing through with the rose-tinted glasses off, and I was playing with someone, I was playing with other Matt, I was playing with Random, he was playing these games for the first time. He'd only ever played Halo 3, he was playing this for the first time, so I got to experience someone who's brand new to the series playing it. I was brand new to the back half of the series, and so we got to see really how it was without the nostalgia glasses on, right? Halo 2, it improves some things on Halo 1, but it's not as good as you all remember. It's good, but it's not as good as you remember. Halo 3, however, is better than I remembered. Halo 3, I'll put it below these two, but Halo 3 is actually better than I remembered. It was good. The storyline in 2 is lacking. The storyline in 3, I feel, is better. I think 3 trumps 2 for storyline. Everything else is basically the same. I think the storyline in 3 is better than 2. Random, other Matt, agreed with me. He definitely agreed with me that 3 was better than 2. But we still held firm that the first game was the best. Now the Descent. So, ODST, we recommend it. Both of us recommend it. But honestly, it's quite low. It's an okay game. It's kind of boring. Like the story, like having the little side story, it's a spin-off. It's quite enjoyable for a spin-off. For me and for other Matt, like ODST was it was too much back and forth, guys. Exactly, it was too much back and forth. Reach, on the other hand, is also a recommend. It just is. It's also a recommend. It's below Halo 2. Reach was good. It felt like a spin-off again. Like it didn't feel like it was part of the main series, which I can't decide whether Reach is meant to be part of the main series or a spin-off, because it tries really hard to be part of the main series, but it also feels like a spin-off. And like it's good. I'd recommend playing it, especially if you can play it as a group. But I only recommend it. It's only good. ODST is an expansion for 3. Yeah. At the time it was new and fresh. It's nice. Well, yeah. Reach was Bungie when they wanted to be done with Halo. Yeah, you can kind of tell they're kind of done. You can kind of tell with Reach that they were kind of done. You know. Now we start to lose hope in life. Halo 4 is meh. Halo 4. Other Matt and I played it, and we were both kind of just there going like the whole time, like, what's going on? What's happening? Now, I will say, is Halo 4 the first game that wasn't Bungie? I think it is, right? Halo 4 is the first game that wasn't Bungie? It is. Yeah, you can tell. It's very meh. We couldn't really keep track of the story, not because it was complicated. We just weren't interested. We just weren't interested in it. We didn't really enjoy it at all. We finished and we're like, oh, that's it, you know. So it's very much a meh game. If you like Halo, you'll probably like it. If you don't like Halo, Halo 5, where you play as Spartan Locke and you occasionally get to sniff the same air as Master Chief, is pure trash. Backstory first, context. Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, Reach, and 4 were all able to be played co-op on PC Game Pass. For some reason, Halo 5 was not on PC Game Pass. I had to play it on my own on console, right? It was so unbelievably boring and bad that I dropped the difficulty down to the easiest setting so that I could get through it faster, because I didn't want to DNF it, because I knew that I had to play the next one with other Matt. I had to play the next game with other Matt, and that's the only reason I didn't DNF it. I honestly should put it in DNF because I was going to. I didn't, so it can't go in DNF. And the only reason is because I needed to play Infinite with other Matt. And guess what? We DNF'd it. It was even more boring. It was even more boring. How on earth they can fumble the ball so hard? It went from interesting missions where you work your way through some like labyrinths and stuff, kill some Flood, kill some Covenant, blah 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 blah, to these two, clear the area, clear the area, clear the area, clear the area. Infinite was an open world where all you had to do was go and clear different areas. It was so bad. Infinite was just the same. Yeah, don't even play 4, 5, or Infinite. Play 4 maybe. 5, you'll be disappointed. 5, you play as Spartan Locke, who's hunting down Master Chief. Master Chief suddenly has his original like Spartan team back from the dead, because they're dead from Halo 1, right? They've been dead since before the beginning of the first game, and yet somehow they're alive again for Halo 5, right? And like, it's just, I would say it's constantly flitting between the two teams, but you don't. I think I worked it out. I can't remember exactly, but I think it's out of like 12, 14 missions, you play as Master Chief, I think 3 or 4 times in a Halo game. And I absolutely, when I went into it, I was like, why were people complaining about this so much, being like, oh, you know, Halo is Master Chief, why can't we play as Master Chief? Surely you play as Master Chief because you can see it. No, I get it. And then Infinite, it's not a Halo game. It's just clearing the area. It's horrendous. It's actually horrendous. I stuck to Halo 5 so I could play Infinite, and then I DNF'd to Infinite because not only was I bored to death, Random was bored to death. We were both bored to death. It was horrendous. Have I played Gears of War? No. Gears of War is the next big series that Random and I will be playing together. That's the next one that we're playing. He's just gotten an Xbox console, so he has Game Pass on console now, not just on PC. So we're going to be playing Gears of War in the next year or so. But out of the absolute turd fest that was the back end of Halo, we went into the glory that was Indie Month. Oh my god, Indie Month. Indie Month was the shining light of the year. Indie Month was incredible. Like, I've been saying for like a year at this point that I think the future of games is indie games, right? We're getting so sick of AAA games just churning out rubbish that indie games have kind of stepped in and gone, hold my beer, and they're showing AAA games how it's done, right? And Indie Month highlighted that beautifully. It was, if there was a month of the year, it was Indie Month. It was phenomenal, right? Indie Month was goated, yeah. Indie Month alone was goated, right? You know how you've been saying about all the goateds? Yeah, don't worry, you're about to get them. Don't worry, you're about to get them. Indie Month, can I just point out, is Bastion all the way down to Broforce. All of these were played in Indie Month. This block of games is Indie Month. We played that many, right? And they were so, most of them were phenomenal. Starting with Bastion, which is the original game made by the Hades developers. So Hades, which is like a beloved game by people, and now Hades 2 that's in development. Bastion was their first soiree into that, right? It's phenomenal. It goes to the top of my recommended. The only reason I don't go to highly recommended is because I'd only recommend you play it if you like Hades and you want to see what their first game was. Because Bastion is just essentially like a tech demo for Hades, right? At least that's how it is now. Originally, obviously, it was its own game and it's very, very well made. But if you've played Hades, you'll like Bastion, but you'll notice that Bastion is not as good, right? Because like Bastion is like their first attempt, and then they polish everything up. Supposedly, I've not played Hades yet. They polish everything up for Hades. So I'd only recommend Bastion if you really loved Hades and you want to see what their first game was. But it was a lot of fun. I really, really liked it. Cuphead is next. And Cuphead is a must-play. And it's an absolute must-play. Cuphead was absolutely phenomenal. Considering how hard of a game it is, I loved every moment of it. It made me rage, it made me want to throw my controller, but I loved every moment of it. It was amazing to watch, would never want to play it, though I'd rage quit so fast. I get that. Like, I have the patience for it. I can see people not having the patience for it, but I absolutely adored the game. And you know I adored the game because I then played the DLC, which I'd put at highly recommended. The DLC adds one more world, basically. In Cuphead, you've got, I want to say 3 worlds? Yeah, 3 worlds, I think. 3 worlds. Cuphead's DLC adds an extra world, basically, right? Think of like Mario, you go to World 1 and you clear the zones, go to World 2, clear the zones, right? That's what Cuphead is, but it's just non-stop boss fights, basically. The DLC was great. It added to the base game. It stands on its own as its own storyline. It's great. Cuphead is a must-play. If you like run and guns, challenging games that will maybe make you tear your hair out a little bit, play Cuphead. Play Cuphead. I'm actually going to drop it below Black Flag, and I think I'm going to move Stardew below Black Flag, but Cuphead is phenomenal. Next, we've got Silence. Silence actually was a sequel that I didn't know was a sequel, because for some reason on some platforms it's listed as Silence, and then on other platforms it's listed as name of the first game 2 Silence, right? I didn't know it was a sequel. Honestly, I had it as meh. I actually drop it to don't recommend. I don't recommend it. I'm changing my mind on that one. I don't know why originally I put that as meh. I don't recommend it. I think it was boring. Don't bother with the original. It's more boring. Right? Oh, you tried it, didn't you? Yeah. I don't recommend it. It's a boring game. It's a point and click. Think like Monkey Island and stuff. But it was just boring. We played better point and clicks that month. Let me put it that way. However, Slay the Spire, boom, all the way up there. It's a highly recommended. Slay the Spire is an amazing game. It's so good. It's a deck building roguelite. It's so good. So many games have tried to copy it. Like Slay the Spire made the deck based roguelite genre blow up. Right, and justifiably so, because it's so good. They've announced Slay the Spire 2. I'll absolutely be playing it. It's so good. It's so good. Slay the Spire has a tabletop board game now. I wouldn't be surprised. I can see it transferring to tabletop really easily. It's such a good game. It's challenging. There's multiple characters you can play as that get progressively harder as you move up. It's a great game. Absolutely great game. I can't recommend it enough to people who like that kind of game. I would argue it does need to go a little lower. I'd put it maybe here, actually. I don't think it's better than these. I actually don't think you're better than those either. But I'd say Slay the Spire, yeah, it's a highly recommended game for me. A game that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did. That's Not My Neighbor, which is so indie, it's not even on Steam. It's on, is it Itch? I can't remember the website. I think it's Itch. That's Not My Neighbor, which is the game where you have to identify doppelgangers or actual people who live in the building and stuff like that. Such a fun game. I would recommend it. I'd recommend it. I would put it like around here. I did like it. I liked it a lot. It was fun to play, but we didn't really get much time out of it. That's why I wouldn't put it higher. If it was a much more fleshed out and bigger game, I would put it as highly recommended or whatever. The game's definition of a TikTok stream game. Yes, absolutely was. Absolutely was. I actually only knew about That's Not My Neighbor because I'd seen people playing it on TikTok Live. That's the only reason I knew about it. So yes, it's absolutely a TikTok stream game. Now we've got Superhot. The cop that can't be stopped. Sorry, I do that every time. I'd highly recommend it, but it goes to the bottom of my highly recommended list. Superhot, I'm late to the game with Superhot. It came out ages ago, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was an interesting concept. The only bad thing really about Superhot was it gave me a headache afterwards. Like it was so, I think it's because it's such a bright, in-your-face game, and it's so loud and bright and everything. Like it hurt to play it after a while. It was a good game, good idea. Everything about it sort of hit my brain wrong. And so I was just there like, I highly recommend you play this, but only because I love the concept of the game. I didn't like the feel of the game because of how much it sort of hurt my eyes to play it and stuff like that. But that just might be an old man thing, right? I would still highly recommend it. Rolling Hills, the game where you play as a little sushi robot who moves into a town and tries to think Stardew Valley, but you run a sushi restaurant as a little robot instead of being a farmer, right? I DNF'd it. I don't think it was a bad game necessarily. I would put it to the sort of top of my DNF. I put it to the top of my DNF. The only reason I DNF'd it is because they did the thing that I hate when games do, which is it made the game a grind, right? It became too grindy. way too much XP needed for leveling, right? So like I think it was like level 10. I think I hit level 10. I was like, oh, we'll probably finish this today because we've only got like a few more levels to go until we get to the ending and blah, blah, blah. And then my XP bar was just not moving. It just wasn't moving. And we worked out the math that it would take me about another 8 hours to... So I got from level 1 to level 10 in about 4 hours. We worked out to get from level 10 to like level whatever the cap is in like double that. It was I needed like another 8 hours. And I was like, I'm not doing that. It's mind-numbingly boring. All I'm doing is serving customers day after day after day after day after day to get that XP. Right? What's the point? They made it too grindy to elongate the thing. They padded, which we hate. We hate to see it. I hate to see it. You guys hate to see it when they pad the game to make it longer. They didn't need to, and I hate that they did it. And I was like, I'm not doing another 8 games just to no, 8 games. I'm not going to do another 8 hours just to see the ending of this game. Superliminal. I mean, it's the top of meh, but I didn't see the hype. It was an interesting like mind puzzle game. Like you're in your dreams, sort of like figuring out puzzles to get through the game. I beat it. I understood everything that was going on. I was like, I didn't see the hype. I really didn't. We did have Reaper doing the speedrun timer for speedrunning. That's what it will always be remembered for. For me, Superliminal was just meh. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not even that it's not my type of game. I was like, because like I've played similar-ish with things like Portal, and I loved Portal. But like this, it was just Planet of Lana, I would highly recommend. But I'll put it down here below, above the Gunk. Planet of Lana was a really cute game. It reminded me a lot of like Limbo and Inside and stuff like that. It's a side-scroller, sort of stealth puzzle game. We've played a few of those over the last year or so. It's a little forgettable, but I'd still highly recommend it if you like that kind of game, like the side-scroller, sort of stealth puzzle sort of games. If you like those, I'd highly recommend Planet of Lana. Frostpunk, the like Ice Age Apocalypse survival steampunk game, I would highly recommend it. Notice how most of the indie games are hitting this bracket of the categories. I would highly recommend Frostpunk. I put it above the Gunk, but below Lana. Frostpunk is an amazing city builder game. If you like city builders, where it's like an apocalypse sort of situation or something like that, Frostpunk is a must-play. Frostpunk won a Game of the Year award. Frostpunk 2 won another Game of the Year award in 2024 this year. It's a great series. I would argue it's a must-play if you love apocalypse city builders. If you don't, and you want a challenging city builder game, I'd highly recommend it. The Longest Road, bottom of DNF. I DNF'd that so hard, so fast. The Longest Road, I can't speak too harshly on it because I only played it for about 15 minutes. It struck me as, I've composed an album. I want to share my music. Let's make it a video game. It was just so boring. It was a side scroller where we just click buttons. It was the classic example of being art over game, right? But it was the worst example, I think, unless something comes up that I've forgotten about. It was the worst example of art over gameplay, right? If that's your jam, sure. For me, I hate the idea of people taking the format of video games and going, yes, but art, right? Video games are an art form. They are an art form, right? If you want to show your art through the medium of video games, make a damn good video game, right? That tells an amazing story that becomes art. Don't just take your art that you've already created and slap it with a video game logo, right? Spirit of the North is art, right? It's art. It Takes Two is art. Storyteller is art. Unpacking is art, right? Planet of Lana is art. Like, even things like Superhot is its own form of art. Longest Road is yeah, it just wasn't. I didn't like it. I didn't like that they like. It's happened a few times. It's happened a few times, but it was the worst example of art pretending to be a video game. You remember how we had a really bad point-and-click game? Now for an amazing one. Kelvin and the Infamous Machine is a must-play, and I can't believe I'm saying that. Kelvin and the Infamous Machine, which is the out-of-nowhere indie game that we randomly found one day that was a point-and-click game. Kelvin and the Infamous Machine is hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. It's a must-play. If you like the point-and-click genre of things like Monkey Island and Discworld and stuff like that, if you like that, play Kelvin and the Infamous Machine. It's got like such a low number of reviews on Steam because so few people play it, but it deserves it. It's fully voice acted. It's hilarious. There's so many jokes in there that were just chef kiss. It's amazing. It's a great point and click game. It's easy playing. It's challenging at times. Absolutely play it. Absolutely play it. I can't sing its praises enough for such a small indie game that kind of came out of nowhere and caught us off guard. It's a phenomenal game. Now for the game that's doing really well on YouTube for some reason, Game Dev Tycoon. Game Dev Tycoon. I recommend it. I wouldn't put it above Halo. Game Dev Tycoon is a fun tycoon game of running a game dev studio. It's fun, it's charming, it's nice. It's just a nice game. It's a nice game. You run a game development company from starting in your garage to all the way up to being like one of the giants of the industry. It's nice. I've heard they're working on another game now. After like a decade, but yeah, it's nice. It was a copyright nightmare for me on YouTube, yeah. But yeah, it's a very nice game. It's a very, very nice game. We are, for at least the next several games, entering god tier quality, right? Starting with Kenna Bridge of Spirits, immediately flying into GOATed. Was arguably one of the top 3 games I played this year. I don't understand how they could make such an incredibly beautiful game that just flew under my radar, right? It's just amazing. Kenna Bridge of Spirits is beautiful storytelling that made me cry. I've only cried at a few games on stream. Kenna made me cry. It's a Souls-like game. The bosses were phenomenal. The cinematics were outstanding. It was just an absolute pleasure from start to finish, to the point where I wanted to 100% it, and I went, no, I can't 100% a Souls-like game because I'll never stop. I'd be there forever, right? Because it's a Souls-like, I will never stop playing. I can't 100% this. It's if I could recommend one game so far out of all of these, it's Kenna Bridge of Spirits. It's incredible. I don't understand how so few people have played it. It's amazing. It did win a Game of the Year award for something. I can't remember what, but it deserved it. Whatever it was, it deserved it. It was phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Another highly underplayed, underrated game was On Guard, which I'm putting up as a must-play, and I'm putting it right there. On Guard was just amazing. It was so fun. It was short. The only reason why it doesn't get into the GOATed category was it was too short. But I had so much fun playing it. It was hard, but very, very enjoyable. On Guard was so surprisingly good. I had so much fun playing it. It was another one of those that's just not played enough. I would highly recommend it. If you've never played On Guard and you like sort of like action, adventure, combat games, play On Guard. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Difficult, but fun. Cocoon. Boom. Up into GOATed. Cocoon was just absolutely phenomenal. I went into Cocoon thinking, okay, it's going to be decent. It's made by some of the devs of Limbo and Inside and stuff like that. They've made great games. I'm going to enjoy this. I did not think I would enjoy Cocoon so much. For me, it took the puzzle genre and flipped it, completely flipped it, revolutionized it because of the sheer, like, the almost Inception levels of things, right? Going into different worlds, going through the crystals, into the other worlds, into another world, into another world, doing a puzzle in one world, popping out into another world to finish that puzzle, the beam comes through, and it was just... You know how Kenna Bridge of Spirits went to Goated, and then almost immediately I put Cocoon into Goated. Yeah, have another one. The Forgotten City, and that shoots all the way up to here. The Forgotten City. The Forgotten City could not scream indie more. The Forgotten City was meant to be a mod for Skyrim, I believe. It was for Elder Scrolls, but an Elder Scrolls game, I think Skyrim. The Forgotten City was meant to be a mod originally, and they enjoyed what they'd made so much, they took it apart and made it its own game with its own story, its own thing. And it's phenomenal. You can see that it's based on Skyrim and it's originally a mod, right? But it is so clever, so intricate. I was not expecting the game that I was given. And it's just phenomenal. The twists, the turns, the prioritizing, the micro, sort of like figuring out, okay, I have to do this first, then this, then this, then this. Without spoiling anything, it is genuinely great. The last game of Indie Month on our list is Broforce, which, while very, very funny and you know, it made me laugh a fair amount of times, I DNF'd it. I DNF'd it for the exact same reason as Boltgun. That's why I'm putting it next bit. The exact same reasons Boltgun. Boltgun was the same thing over and over and over, just getting harder. Broforce was the same thing over and over and over, just getting harder. I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was clever what they did with taking all these action heroes and giving them silly bro names and stuff like the Brominator and Sylvester Brolone and stuff like that. I thought it was really funny. Rambro and things, but like it's the same thing over and over, just getting harder. I didn't DNF it because it's a bad game. I just DNF'd it because I got bored of doing the same thing over and over and over. As you can see, we're not too far off of done, but we now move into something. It started as anime month, then animation month, and then tie-in month. Basically, it was games that were based on an existing franchise, so based on a cartoon or a book or an anime or comic or anything like that, right? So we had up until Spider-Man. All of these were animation, tie-in, whatever you want to call it, month. Starting with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. We only played the first one of the original trilogy because it was a lot longer than I expected. It kind of drained me a little bit, honestly. And for that reason, it goes into meh. Because while it was an interesting series and it was very, very kooky and silly and funny, it just didn't do anything for me. I was kind of like, it's okay. Like we enjoyed it for its silliness, but the amount that it dragged kind of counteracted the silliness. If it dragged the way that it does and it wasn't funny, it'd be down in pure trash. If the pacing was better, it would go up to highly recommended. The pacing brought down the humor for me and brought it into a meh. I enjoyed playing it, but I got to the end of the first one and went, I don't want to play the other two. I don't want to play the other two. At least not now. Maybe in the future when I've had a little bit of time away from the series, but if that's the case, there's like 9 or 10 games in the series. I'm going to be ages. The Batman Arkham Trilogy. Now, I know it's a quadrilogy technically. There's Arkham Origins. I actually bought Arkham Origins during the winter sale so that I could play Arkham Origins. So Arkham Origins will be coming. Because I wanted to play all the Arkham games, not the Suicide Squad game, because that's trash. But I wanted to play the whole of the Arkham series, so Arkham Origins will be on the way. But yeah, we got the Arkham trilogy here with Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. Arkham Asylum for me goes straight into highly recommended, and I'd put it up there. I'd put it up there next to Assassin's Creed. I think Arkham Asylum is such a nice game. It's so well made. If you love Batman or stealth games or anything like that, play it. I'd highly, highly recommend it. What I love about the Arkham trilogy, Arkham Asylum especially, is a lot of these superhero games that we're seeing, that some of them will come up as we go through this list, they base a lot of their mechanics and everything on the Arkham trilogy because it just did it so well. It did its combat and its maneuvering around the environment and everything so well that other superhero games have imitated it, right? Arkham City for me shoots up to highly recommended above Arkham Asylum. I feel like Arkham City took everything that Arkham Asylum did and made it better. I think it just made it better. I loved that we had a larger environment to explore. We got to do a bit more Batmaning in terms of like the gliding and the grapple hooking and stuff like that. I kind of wish that with City they'd included more characters. They introduced Catwoman as a playable character, which was nice. I kind of wish they'd added Robin or Nightwing or stuff like that a little earlier to the series and then put it in City. But I still really liked it. I was tempted to 100% it, but I realized how much I'd have to do to 100% it, and I was like, maybe not. But it was really, really good. I really, really liked it. Now for Arkham Knight, aka World of Tanks. Arkham Knight goes down here. Goes to recommended. So Arkham Knight, I recommend it just to finish off the series. If you like Batman, you'll like it. Arkham Knight, I feel, ruins a lot of what makes Asylum and City great by adding the Batmobile. Adding the Batmobile didn't automatically make it bad, but what they did with the Batmobile made it bad. They took the whole thing with the Batmobile and just overdid it, right? Because with the Batmobile, they had a thing where you use the Batmobile to blow up a load of unmanned tanks and stuff like that, right? Hence the World of Tanks joke. The problem is it was just non-stop. I spent more time in the Batmobile during story missions than I did doing anything else. The whole point of Batman is stealth, detective work, all that kind of stuff. He's the world's greatest detective, not the world's greatest tank operator, right? It took away all the beauty that the Asylum and City had built up and stripped it away to World of Tanks. It had so many cool things. I really wanted to love it because there were Nightwing missions, which I adored. Nightwing's my favorite DC character. I adored the fact that Nightwing was in it. There were Robin missions, technically. There were so many different missions, so many different characters introduced, and so many fun side things like Firefly and stuff. But then they added some stuff that I absolutely just hated. I absolutely just hated it, and I can't argue highly recommending it. I'd recommend it, but I can't highly recommend it. Honestly, I've been hyping up playing PS1 Hercules for about a year now. I know some of you in chat, like Twit, my moderator, really, really wanted me to play it. And I remember really loving it as a kid. It's meh. It's meh. It's meh. It's like upper end of meh, but no, it's actually not. But it's meh. In terms of tie-in side scrollers, it's fine. But there was nothing particularly great about it. Even you guys, when I finished it, and I Twit so how dare you and everything, but even you Twit, you were there with me afterwards going that ending was so bad. It was so bad. It was such a meh ending and everything. I remember it being a much better game than it was, but again, I was a kid, nostalgia, it's meh. It's one of those where if you want the nostalgia, play it. If you have no nostalgia for that game at all, you probably don't want to play it. Right? It was fun to watch, just very typical for its time. Yeah, it was your typical Disney tie-in game. Right? It was your typical Disney tie-in game. Speaking of tie-in games, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I recommend it. I actually put it above Game Dev Tycoon, right there. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I played the PS1 version. There's a PS1 and a PS2 version. I played the PS1 version. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was going to be very dated and glitchy and bad for its time. We got to experience PS1 Hagrid, and we had a lot of fun. It was absolutely not even close to correct for the book or the movie. They kind of just went their own way with it. But it was silly. It was funny. I liked it. It was good. It was really, really good. I'd recommend it. If you're a Harry Potter fan, play it. If you're not a Harry Potter fan, maybe not. But if you're a Harry Potter fan, play it. Injustice Gods Among Us, the first of the 2 Injustice fighting games for the DC Universe. Meh. It was fine. It wasn't anything special. I neither liked it nor hated it. It was just meh. I'm not a massive fighting game person, so that may have influenced it a little bit. It was the same sort of thing over and over, because it's a fighting game. Obviously, there's going to be fighting over and over, right? But I thought it would give us a wider variety of characters to play as. Instead, I think we played as 6 characters. Superman turning evil, because of spoiler. It's good concept. I've heard the Injustice comics are amazing. I've heard the Injustice movie is amazing. The game was just very meh. Our first of only 2 Pokemon games this year was Pokemon Legends Arceus, or Arceus, depending on how you say it. I'd highly recommend this. I'm actually going to put it above Spirit of the North. Spirit of the North finally gets dethroned from the top of highly recommended. For me, genuinely for me, Pokemon Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game we've had in a long time, because they finally took the rigid formula that they've been using in every mainline Pokemon game up until that point and went and threw it away and went, you know what, we're just gonna do something different. And I loved it. It's so different from the regular games of the main series that people actually don't think it's a main series game, to the point where they've had to come out and say it is a main series game. It is a main series, just like Red and Blue, just like Scarlet and Violet. It is a main series game. It's not a spin-off like Mystery Dungeon or Snap or anything. It is part of the main series because it's just so different, and I love it. It's buggy, it's glitchy, it's Pokemon, right? It's console Pokemon, but I really hope with the next Legends game and any future Legends games that they tidy up the bugs and everything. Maybe they make the world a bit more interesting to look at, because it is quite a bland world. But for me, phenomenal game. Highly recommend it. If you like chill games, if you like Pokemon games, if you've always been there going, I wish Pokemon was more story focused, Pokemon Legends. The last game of animation tie-in month, whatever you want to call it, Marvel's Spider-Man, PS4 Spider-Man, because there's so many Spider-Man games that are just called Spider-Man that they've had to call it Marvel's Spider-Man, right? I went into this game kind of being like, so overhyped. It's not going to be anywhere near as good as the hype makes it out to be, or anything like that. I like to admit when I'm wrong. It's a must-play. It's a must-play. It's an absolute must-play. They took everything good about the Arkham series and applied it to Spider-Man and made it better. I don't know how they made it better, but they did. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal game. I wish I had a PS5 so I could play Spider-Man 2. I wish I had a PS5 so I could play Spider-Man 2. It's so phenomenal. Genuinely, it's phenomenal. I love that they included some well-known villains and then some not so well-known villains. I loved that I was able to call who the Act 1 villain was based on clues and just general geeky knowledge that I had about Spider-Man. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. I'd love to play the rest of the series. The next two games are ones that I've randomly played throughout the year that didn't fit into any category, really. We've got Tavern Master and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, which we're wrapping up now. Tavern Master is a tavern management sim, right? You run your own tavern. Was not expecting it to be as fun as it was, honestly. I was not expecting it to be as fun as it was. I'd highly recommend it. If you love management sims, Tavern Master's great. It was a lot more in depth than I expected it to be, a lot more interesting than I expected it to be. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, I've not played it up until now because when Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl originally came out, I was filming my Platinum playthrough for YouTube, and I was like, I can't play Pokemon Platinum and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl at the same time because it's going to make me go insane. And then I just never picked it up, so I've played Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl for the first time. I gotta say, I don't get the hate that it has. I would put it slap bang there for highly recommended. I don't understand the hate. I think the art style is cute. I think it fits. I think it's a nice game. I think it elevates Gen 4. Gen 4 to me has always been a bit of a mediocre, middle of the road sort of gen. I feel like the additions they did to the Underground and everything else that I've seen, it improves it. I think if you like old school Pokemon, you'd love it, and I highly recommend it. Thank you very much. I forgot that I played that. I completely forgot that I played RimWorld, and I highly recommend it. Immediately, just highly recommend it. RimWorld is a phenomenal game. It's such a fun game. It's another management sort of sim game. You are on a RimWorld planet trying to survive. You have your own colony. It was hilarious to play it. I love playing it. I didn't finish it or anything. We just sort of played it as like a gap fill thing, but it was so fun. I loved it. We now move into the end of the year where it was kind of a lot of like me taking time off because family was sick or I was sick or stuff like that. So we only have a handful of games left. That you can see like the first half of the year is just absolutely crammed full of content. The back half of the year not so much because there was a lot of like IRL things happening, but there's still a decent chunk of games here to go through. Starting with Retro Month, where we did the Spyro Reignited trilogy. I was originally going to split this into 3, because it is 3, but then I realized, no, the original 3 are their own separate games. This is an entire game, but it's the 3 games, right? Like the Insane trilogy. It has changed a fair amount from the original games. It's changed the voice lines. It's gotten rid of some things that maybe like it's like, oh, guns, can't have guns, so it makes it like laser guns or like bubble guns or whatever. I'd recommend it. I genuinely would recommend it. The fact that the deciding factor for me to not split these was that I gave all 3 games the exact same rating. I recommended all 3, so I was like, okay. As someone who didn't play Spyro growing up, I didn't have the nostalgia. If you have the nostalgia, it's probably a must-play, honestly. But for me, it's top of recommended because I don't have that nostalgia. And for me, now having played them, I think they're actually weaker than the Crash trilogy. The Spyro games are much easier than the Crash games. If you have a kid who's like, I don't know, between the ages of 3 and 8 or whatever, and you want to get them into platformers that are like Spyro and Crash or whatever, start with Spyro, then go into Crash, because Spyro is definitely baby's first Crash. Right, it eases you into the idea of Crash Bandicoot. I definitely say kids especially should play Spyro before they play Crash, because otherwise, if they play Crash and then Spyro's going to be too easy. But Spyro is a nice sort of like work up into the difficulty of Crash. It's not saying Crash is really, really hard. It's just it's harder than Spyro. So yeah, that's how I would do it. I'd do Spyro then Crash. Speaking of old platformers, Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. I genuinely didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I did. Boom. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. I'd put it probably there. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time was a lot of fun. It was a lot harder than I expected it to be, but it was a lot of fun. It's also really hard to beat it because you have to collect almost everything. You can only be missing a tiny handful of the collectibles. When I say tiny, it's like there's like over 100 of them, and you can only be missing like 4. Right, it's really hard to beat the game, especially if you're a kid. I don't know how we played this as kids. Like, I know 1 or 2 people who beat this, but it's really good. It's got the comedy, it's fun, it's entertaining. I like it. Next, we have a game that I've been meaning to play for ages. We have Bully. I did the Scholarship Edition, which is like the Game of the Year version, where it has like all the extra stuff in it. Bully is made by the people who make GTA, and Red Dead Redemption. It's Rockstar, and you can tell because it's just GTA. But if you were a high school student and you were committing crimes and stuff in a high school in the surrounding area, but it's absolutely hilarious, and I highly recommend it. I absolutely highly recommend it. It's a great game. It's a great game. I loved every moment of it. I've never been a massive fan of GTA because of just how big and open it is, right? GTA is one of those games where it kind of just plops you down and goes, right, off you go. Right? There are story missions, but it kind of just drops you in the world and just goes, okay, go. And I don't really like those kinds of games. They tend to bore me quite quickly. I like to sort of be my ideal game is a game where they take you on the journey or the path of the story, and as you're going down that story, there's open areas for you to explore. I don't like games where they just drop you into a massive world and they go find the story, right? But yeah, Bully is great. If you want a more compact version of GTA, play Bully. I think Bully is definitely it's a more compact version of GTA, and I like it a lot. Next, we have the OG, the original Call of Duty trilogy. This is before Modern Warfare or anything like that. The original Call of Duties were based in World War II, and then Call of Duty 4 was Modern Warfare, right? Which is where it started being mostly focusing on online and all that kind of thing. Tactical nuke incoming, all that stuff, right? The Call of Duty trilogy, the original trilogy, we decided to do them for Retro Month. The problem with the original trilogy is it's technically not a trilogy, right? Because there's varying versions of the first game depending on if it's PC or console, and they're different stories and everything. It's the same with 2, it's the same with, I don't think it's the same with 3. I think 3 is the same on everything. But Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2 have different games based on what you're playing it on. So I did the PC versions, the PC and then Xbox versions, right? Because Call of Duty 1 is only on PC as far as I'm aware. Call of Duty 2 is on Xbox and PC, but there's also like Big Red 1 and stuff like that. I kept it simple. I did the things that were labelled as Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3, right? Rather than the ones that are like Call of Duty 2, big red ones. I did 1, 2, 3. So, Call of Duty 1, I'd actually recommend it, but I wouldn't put it very high. I put it like around about here. I'd recommend Call of Duty 1. It's a nice game. It's interesting to see where they started. I feel like the story was interesting. The gameplay was interesting. There was no real like clear the area or anything like that, which was fun. It was very much you go in a straight line until you get to the end sort of thing. You could see that it was still sort of like working off of the formula of things like Doom and Quake and things like that, where like you start at A and you work your way to B and that's the end of the level, right? Rather than you start at A, you go to B, you clear out B, and then you move to C, and you clear out C, and then you move to D, and you clear out D, and then you go to E, and then that's the end of the level, right? So they definitely are still going with the old school FPS format, and I like that. I thought it was good. Call of Duty 2, however, was very much meh. It was very meh. I would put it there, honestly. It was very meh. Unfortunately, the clear the areas began. I didn't think the story was anywhere near as interesting. It just wasn't as good somehow. I just didn't find it as fun. Call of Duty 3, it's also meh, but it's a slightly better meh. It's a slightly better meh, but it's still, you're not missing anything. You're really not missing anything. It goes even harder on clear the area. Yeah, it's okay. It's meh. Right, the last game of Retro Month was the second Harry Potter game. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which I could have played on PS1 or PS2. I chose PS2 because you guys all said that it's more stable on PS2. I'm glad I took your opinion because I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to put it right here, right next to Philosopher's Stone, but actually above Philosopher's Stone, because I think it took all the fun parts of Philosopher's Stone and made it more fun with the second game. It's still very much a game of its era. It's quite a lot of open areas with not much going on. It's quite janky, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, actually, I found myself enjoying it far more than I thought I would, and it's a fun little bit of nostalgia for those of you who were watching me that were like, oh, I played this as a kid. It was fun. I liked it. Is there going to be more Harry Potter in 2025? Yes, there's going to be a lot more. So I was a bit hesitant about playing the Harry Potter games because I know it's such a divisive issue between certain communities and stuff like that, and I didn't know. I'd never gauged with the Doo-Doo Head community as where we sort of stood in terms of the Harry Potter games. So yeah, I wanted to test the waters. You guys seem to really enjoy it. Sort of like you was there saying, like, she has issues, but we separate the art from the artist, sort of thing. So I'm happy to play more of it. We now move on to Spooky Month, which was way better than I was expecting. I'm not a big horror game fan, but we had some absolute gems in Spooky Month. So we're going to start with Alan Wake Remastered. I'd highly recommend it. As much as I dislike scary games, I would highly recommend it. I'm probably going to put it around here. Alan Wake Remastered is a phenomenal game. I've heard that the remaster has issues, which I did encounter. You've said that Alan Wake, the base game, handles a bit better because they were making this remaster along with Alan Wake 2 at the same time or something like that, so it's a little bit buggy. I don't think that's an excuse. I think that's a reason. I don't think it's an excuse for the game being glitchy and buggy. But I still think it's a phenomenal game. I think the story heavily carries the game. I think if the story wasn't as good as it is, it wouldn't be recommended as highly by me. But yeah, the game is phenomenal purely for story. Whatever you give Alan Wake, drop it down one tier for the ending and how much padding they added for no reason. The ending gameplay ruined it so hard. No. I think if it wasn't for the padding, it'd be near the top of highly recommended. I've moved it to the bottom end of highly recommended because of that. The next game upsets me because I've lost the footage for it. Twitch deleted the footage for this next game, so I can never post a playthrough of this unless I play it again. Alice Return to Madness was such a pleasant surprise, and I highly recommend it. I put it right up there with Alan Wake. It was such a fun ride. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I'm tempted to play it again in my own time just to refilm it so I can put it up. Because the best thing about it as well was that the game also came with the original game. Because it's a sequel. It actually came with the original game as well. So yeah, it's phenomenal. If you like gothic, steampunky sort of horror, play it. It's so good. It's on Game Pass. That's how I was able to play it. It's so good. Right, our only Doom game of the year. I was going to play more Doom games, but I ended up not. Doom 2016, which is like the soft reboot of the series after a while of it not having any games. It was really good. Again, this month, man, I highly recommend it. I think it was a phenomenal re-entry to the series. I played the first game last year for Spooky Month, I believe it was. I played the reboot this Spooky Month. It's great. It's a love letter to the originals, but it's sort of got a modern take on it. It's much friendlier to a modern audience who like to have fast-paced games and stuff. Whereas it's still kept the difficulty of the original games. I thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun. The soundtrack is an absolute bop. It really gets your adrenaline and your like pumping. It gets you really motivated, like rip and tear. It's a great game. It's a great game. I'm looking forward to playing the rest of the Doom series just because the original and now this reboot have both impressed me. So I'm looking forward to playing the rest. Little Nightmares. There's Little Nightmares 1, Little Nightmares 2, and they're working on Little Nightmares 3, I believe. We only played the first Little Nightmares. I'd never played it before. I think it was really good. I recommend it. I won't put it too high up. I'll probably put it around here. I thought Little Nightmares was fun. It was another side-scroller, sort of horror game, very limbo, inside, all that kind of stuff. I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. We've made it to the last row of games. We're nearly there. We have the last couple of horror games, then we have November, and then we have the Final Fantasy games. Ooh, we're in for a ride here. We're in for a ride with this last line. So we've got Plague Tale Innocence, which is the first of the Plague Tale games. We were going to play both, but I needed a bit of a break after this first one because it was just so, like, draining mentally, because it was just such a wild ride. Such a wild ride. Plague Tale Innocence, I've got to highly recommend it. I don't think I've put any horror games below highly recommend yet, have I? Or maybe below recommend. Yeah, nothing's gone below recommend yet. Plague Tale Innocence, honestly, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's such a unique story. I just kind of don't like what they did with the ending. The ending was kind of like, but I still highly recommend it. I think it's a wonderful game, wonderful story, very creative, very clever. Absolutely should play it. Be warned, it is a horror, so there are some gross moments. There's a lot of gore in this game. But I'd still highly recommend it. Slay the Princess, the indie game made by two people, where it's a choose-your-own-adventure style game with about a bajillion different endings. Goated. Absolutely goated. One of the absolute best games I've played this year. And it's another indie game. It's straight to the top. It's another indie game. Look at the sheer number of indie games on here this year. It's ridiculous. Slay the Princess was so creative, so different, so original. I just loved everything about it. It was so unexpectedly good. Yes, there are games that are somewhat similar to it, but it was just such a unique spin on the choose your own adventure style. I loved it. I was excited to see all the different kinds of endings I could get. I was excited to see where each decision would lead me. I loved all the different voices you got in your head based on your decisions from previous things. It was a joy to play it. Absolute joy to play it. I loved every moment of it. Any game that makes it into GOATed, by the way, you should all play them. If it makes it into must play, you really should play it. But these need to be played, right? And Slay the Princess absolutely deserves that. You should absolutely play it. Oh god. What Remains of Edith Finch? On my list here, I have it as recommended. I kind of want to put it in meh. I don't know why I've got it as recommend, because I kind of want to put it into meh. And I think I am. I think I am going to put it into meh. I was bored, man. Like, What Remains of Edith Finch is basically the story of a family who think that they're cursed to die weird and horrible deaths and stuff, when in reality, it's just horrendously bad parenting, right? You've got kids dying from being poisoned by berries. Oh, except the berries are growing in their bathroom, so the parents have put poisonous berries in their bathroom. You've got a kid who was riding his swing in a storm and he flew when really he swung so hard that he fell off his swing and he went off into the ocean. Oh, well, how's that bad parenting? I don't know. They put a swing on a tree on a cliff edge and thought that wouldn't end badly. You know, one of the kids saw his sister get murdered by a stalker. Oh, should we maybe give him some therapy or something? Nah, lock him in the basement. He'll be fine. Like, it was just death. Yeah, exactly. Death by stupidity and ignorance, right? Most of those deaths were due to just ignorance and stupidity. And for that reason alone, I was just like going, what am I doing? What am I playing? What am I reading? What am I listening? It was just eh. We're now on the last game of Spooky Month, but it leads into November because I played Hellblade 1 specifically so I could play Hellblade 2 for November, for the new games month. And every November I play games that came out that year. And I played Hellblade 1 because Hellblade 2 came out that year. And I am so glad that I did, because Hellblade 1 shoots up to goated and Hellblade 2 shoots up to goated. But the general rule, of course, is the same thing as the Star Wars games. I can't really have two of the same series, so I put Hellblade 1 down to must play. For the exact same reason as Fallen Order, I don't want people's votes being split, so I had to pick the best of the two. I picked Survivor for the Jedi games, I picked Hellblade 2 for the Hellblade games. Oh my god, Hellblade, what a series. How have I been sleeping on this? Like, the Hellblade series is absolutely phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I was editing my playthroughs of them yesterday, and I had to stop and realise that I just stopped and I was watching it. I'm there editing, and then I realised, oh, hang on, I haven't been editing for like 10 minutes because I'm watching it. Like, it was so unbelievably good, and it was absolutely, like you say, Dan, it's absolutely elevated by the documentary at the end of Hellblade 2 where they explain how they did what they did. The fact that they took a real life thing that some people have and they turned it into a game is phenomenal. I'm there. Yes, I was genuinely there yesterday editing Hellblade 1, watching the fight with the wolf, where it's in the darkness and there's the flashing red and all that kind of thing. I was going, oh my god, this game is so insanely stunning visually, with its audio and everything. Like, if you watch my Hellblade 1 or Hellblade 2 playthroughs on YouTube, or play Hellblade yourself, which you absolutely should do, wear headphones, because they have taken audio and elevated it to a level that I've never seen. It's so insanely good. There's a reason why Hellblade 1 and Hellblade 2 won the Game of the Year award for audio. There's a reason, because it's so unbelievably good. Like, Hellblade 2 was just phenomenal. There's a part of my playthrough of Hellblade 2 where I stop and I applaud the game, because there's a combat scene where every time I kill someone, it seamlessly goes into a cinematic of the fight continuing with like an ally going past me getting shot by an arrow, or like someone bumping into the back of me and I spin around and go straight into another fight. I had to explain to you guys at what point I was playing versus what point I was watching a cinematic by showing you that I'm using the controller, because it was so seamless. I don't know how they did it, but it's insane. It's insane, and genuinely, the series deserves way more love than it's gotten. Next, we moved on to Another Crab's Treasure. I DNF'd it, but I'm going to put it at the top of the DNF list because it was a really good game. I liked it a lot. I played a sizable chunk of it. The problem is, it was a Souls-like game that unfortunately was too Souls-like for my liking. Remember what I said about how the thing I don't like about Souls-like games in general is the smacking your head against a brick wall until you break the wall down, learning patterns, learning this, learning that, and just success through suffering, right? It was too much like that. Where Tunic and the Jedi games and stuff didn't have that, Another Crab's Treasure did have it, and I just couldn't finish it. Great game. If you like Souls-likes, you should play it. For me, it's a good example of a DNF that wasn't DNF'd because it was bad. It was just DNF'd because it just wasn't the game for me, right? I thoroughly believe it should have gotten nominated for something at the Game Awards. At least nominated, but it didn't. It's just, for me, there are some games that I play that I instantly go, this isn't for me, this isn't my game. And I know that if I had played it to the end, I would have given it a bad review simply because it's not my kind of game. And I don't think it's fair to take a game that arguably is good and give it a bad review just because it's not for me. So I DNF'd it. So, hand in the air, hand on chest, will admit, 3 of these games I was given by the devs, right? I wasn't paid to promote them. I wasn't paid at all. They just turned around and said, hey, do you want to play our games? I was like, yeah, alright, I'll give them a go. They look interesting. One of them, the first one, was Galactic Glitch. Galactic Glitch, Elemental Exiles, and Endzone 2. I DNF'd every single one of them. I DNF'd every single one of them. But I'll explain why. Because it's a different reason for each one. Right? It's a different reason for each one. Galactic Glitch I DNF'd because it's early access. That's literally the only reason. I play games because I want to get to the end. There's no ending to Galactic Glitch yet. It's not finished, but I absolutely intend to play it when it is full release. When it is full release, I will play it because it was such a fun roguelite to play. I really liked it. I in no way I'm saying that you shouldn't play it. I think it's a good game. I think it will be potentially a great game when it's fully released, but that is my problem with early access. I can't tell you if it's a great game because it's not done, right? So I don't play early access for that reason. I can't give a recommendation to something that isn't finished. That would be like me looking at a cake before it goes in the oven and going, yeah, that's going to be great. And then it comes out being a hot pile of garbage and you go, well, this is disgusting. Why did you recommend this to me? You know, like, I don't know what the end product is going to be. So for that reason alone, I couldn't finish it. I just couldn't finish it. But I think it's going to be a great game. So I look forward to seeing it fully released. I'm going to save Elemental Exiles until last because, as Dan knows, it's going to be a rant. Endzone 2, they actually did say, hey, we like your stuff. We saw you play Frostpunk. Would you like to play our game? I was like, yeah, absolutely, sure. There's a key difference between Frostpunk and Endzone 2, other than the obvious things of one being an apocalypse and one being like a Ice Age apocalypse and stuff like that. The difference between Frostpunk and Endzone 2 is one has a purpose, the other doesn't. I like city management games. I love base building games. I love them. They're my bread and butter. I adore them. Right? They're one of my favorite genres. Base building games are amazing, in my opinion. Enzo 2 has no purpose. There's no campaign that I can see. There's no... Well, I couldn't find a campaign. There may be one, but I couldn't find it. There's no point to doing it other than endless building. To me, that's boring. I DNF'd it solely because it can't be effed. It can't be finished. Right? It can't be finished. If I can't finish it, I don't want to play it. You know, I want to be able to finish a game. Endzone 2 is just city building and more city building and more city building and more city building, and the only thing that's changing is your resource requirements, right? At least from the time that I played it. If that's your jam, if you like endless city builders, go for it. But for me, not my thing. Settle in. Rant time. If there's ever an example of how not to make a game as an indie developer, Elemental Exiles is it. And I mean that in the harshest way possible. Right? Elemental Exiles is clearly a game where they've looked at the success of Slay the Spire and gone, I'm going to do that, but wrong. Right? So they took Slay the Spire and they made their own tower climbing game, except you're traveling around a world map rather than up a tower, right? You're traveling around a world map and you're doing battles and random encounters and everything. Think Slay the Spire, but flat instead of going up, right? And you're going around. Biggest problem is, first of all, there's just too much going on. The beauty of things like Slay the Spire is it eases you in. You've got a very basic deck at the beginning. You learn what the other cards do as you acquire them, as you progress through and do run after run after run. You learn about all these other cards. You learn how to build your decks and everything, but you still have that very basic beginning deck. Elemental Exiles, you start with a complicated deck. Already an issue, right? Then they kind of just throw too many random events at once. The art style. I'm the kind of person who will always like champion the idea of gameplay over art style, right? If the game plays if the gameplay plays really, really well, I can forgive poor art style, right? I'd say things like Stardew, right? Stardew is pixel graphics. You could argue it's bad art style, bad graphics, blah 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 blah, but it plays so well. Right? It plays so well. The gameplay of Stardew trumps the bad graphics. I would argue maybe it's not bad graphics, but some people would say bad graphics, right? I'd say the gameplay of Stardew trumps the graphics, right? Elemental Exiles' art style is horrendous. Now, you're an indie dev. All the love in the world to you. You're an indie dev. It looks like I've drawn it, and I'm not a great artist, right? Looks like I've drawn it. The gameplay is more complicated than Slay the Spire, the thing that you are very shamelessly imitating. The deck's overly complicated. Everything just plays worse than Slay the Spire. And I could forgive all of it. I could forgive all of it. Absolutely all of it. If it wasn't for the fact that your game is more expensive than Slay the Spire. Why is your game more expensive than Slay the Spire? Right? At the time of me filming it, the game was about $5 or $6 more expensive than Slay the Spire. And Slay the Spire wasn't on sale. It was just $5 or $6 higher in price than Slay the Spire. As an indie dev, when you're clearly trying to get this game off the ground, why the hell are you charging nearly $30 for the game? The game is nearly $30. Why are you charging that much? All they have to do to make this game move from here to like here, or maybe even here, is drop that price all the way down to like $10. Drop it down to like $10. And I'd be like, do you know what? Fine. The poor art style, the complicatedness, people will still like this. And it's not expensive. It's not putting a hole in my pocket. Give it a go. But the sheer fact that they put it at almost $30 when I looked, it's unforgivable. No. Rant over. We're now moving on from the DNFs. I don't think there's any more DNFs. Nope, there's no more DNFs. People, we are officially done with the DNFs. We have finished all of the remaining games. Next, we have what I thought was going to be an absolute horror story for me. And it is a horror game, Still Wakes the Deep. The horror game where you're on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. And, yeah, I'm terrified of the ocean, so this was always going to go well. Except it did go really well. Because I'd highly recommend it. I'd highly recommend Still Wakes the Deep. I think it's a great game. And that's from someone who's terrified of the ocean. It was a really fun game. It was nice to see like accents and stuff that weren't normally in games. Like to see such a strong Scottish accent in a game as a main character, to have all the characters bar one or two Englishmen to be Scottish, to have all that in there, to have the slang in there, to not be afraid to throw in Scottish idioms and sayings and slang and all that kind of thing. It was a bold choice and it worked. It absolutely worked. I loved it. I thought the horror was on point. I thought it scared me at the right moments. It was challenging at the right moments. I never felt like I was overwhelmed with either scary moments or with the puzzles. I thought it was great. It's a really well-made horror game, and you should absolutely play it. You know how I said Elemental Exiles is the worst way to like do an indie game, especially if you're imitating something like Slay the Spire? Yeah. Here's a great way to do it with Disomancer that's going right up here, literally smack bang next to Slay the Spire. Disomancer. Who knew? I grabbed that just as a time filler. I grabbed it as a time filler. It was so fun. The art style, unique. The gameplay style, while still a deck builder, was still unique. Everything about it was just fun. It was like they looked at Slay the Spire and went, I'm going to put a D&D twist on that. I'm going to take Slay the Spire and everything that Slay the Spire has done and done well. I'm going to add a D&D aspect to it, and I loved it. I loved using a D20 to decide things. I loved using all the different D&D dice. I loved like having the little effects and everything, the abilities. I thought it was a great game. I thought it was a lovely blend of Slay the Spire with its deck building sort of roguelite sort of thing, combined with Dungeons and Dragons. It was great. Absolutely great. And the art style was cute. It was really, really cute. So, highly, highly recommend it. Creatures of Ava. Gorgeous game. Absolutely gorgeous game. I'm going to throw that up here to highly recommend it as well. Creatures of Ava caught me so off guard with how charming it was. The writing is phenomenal. The gameplay is a beautiful mix of so many different things. It's got your Pokemon, it's got your Zelda in the playing the music sort of thing, like the ocarina, but it's a flute sort of thing. It's Pokemon Snap with more steps, yeah. Like you're taking pictures, learning about the creatures. You're interacting with this native alien species that are on the planet. Everything. It's charming. It's really nice. There's so many subtle forms of comedy in it as well. Like the ongoing joke about trying to figure out how this species, this like humanoid species that live on this planet, trying to figure out how they mate is hilarious because we have no idea. The human characters openly admit that they have no idea how this species reproduce because it just doesn't. We don't know, right? And every time we ask somebody, they deflect. And it's hilarious, right? To the point where your characters are going, I'm never going to find out how these guys reproduce, sort of thing. Like, you're genuinely asking from a scientist sort of like angle. And you're there going like, I'm never going to find out. They're never going to tell me. And it's so fun. It's so fun. The next two are Black Ops 6 and Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals doesn't have a story. It's a hero shooter, right? Black Ops 6, I've only played the multiplayer. So I'm only judging it on the multiplayer. The multiplayer and zombies, right? Because those are the only two things I've done. I intend to play the entire Black Ops series, but I don't want to start with 6. I want to start from 1 and play the stories through to 6, right? So I've held off of playing Black Ops 6 until I've played the stories for the first 5, right? So I've only done the multiplayer and zombies, so that is what I'm reviewing here, not the story. Keep it in mind. For me, Black Ops 6's multiplayer, I'd highly recommend it. I throw it all the way up to the top to, well, let's put it next to Halo. The multiplayer of Black Ops 6 is a lot of fun. They have so many events going on and all that sort of thing. I haven't played multiplayer Call of Duty since like Modern Warfare 2, right? Because I kind of fell out of love with Call of Duty. Playing Black Ops 6 multiplayer has really, really like rekindled that love that I had for it. And I will openly admit right now, it's solely because of Game Pass. I would not have gone near it if it wasn't for the fact it's on Game Pass. So that in itself is testament to Game Pass working. Game Pass works because it got me to play Black Ops 6. Marvel Rivals, which is our hero shooter, it's been labelled the Overwatch killer. It's been labelled everything that Overwatch should have been. It's been labelled like not all it's cracked up to be. I'd recommend it. I'm going to put it at the bottom of recommend. I recommend it. I've kind of outgrown the hero shooter category. I used to play Overwatch a lot. I used to play Overwatch 2 a fair amount. It's okay. I've kind of grown out of it a little bit because the problem that I have with hero shooters is they're so unbelievably repetitive because there's only like 4 to 8 maps that you do. You tend to find people falling into a meta. But what I will say is if you enjoy hero shooters, like if you loved Overwatch but got bored of Overwatch because of how much it changed, play Marvel Rivals. I think Marvel Rivals has everything going for it to become the next massive hero shooter. The only thing standing in its way is them making a humongous mistake in some way, shape, or form, which I don't think they're going to do. They've got the recognizability of Marvel characters. They've got the humongous potential roster available to them because of the comics. They have the hype of the TV shows and the movies and the comics and the other games and everything to carry them through. I don't see Marvel Rivals failing unless they do something to make it fail. But the only reason why I don't put it into highly recommended is because I would only recommend it if you like hero shooters. Otherwise, I think this is our third DLC of the year. The Tavern Master DLC, where they did the Pirate Cove thing. I got it because it was new. It came out during November, so I was like, hey, why not? Tavern Master is all the way over here. The Tavern Master DLC, though, I'd just recommend it. It's going to below Marvel Rivals. I'd recommend it, but with the caveat of I only recommend it if you liked Tavern Master, obviously, because it's a DLC, right? I recommend it if you liked Tavern Master. If you didn't like Tavern Master, why would you go near it? You know, I played it on day one release. Unfortunately, there was a bug on day one release that made it so that certain things didn't work properly, so I played a glitched version of it. So when you inevitably see my playthrough of it up on YouTube, it will be a glitched version of it because day one release was bugged and glitched. But I mean, it was still a nice expansion. It changed a lot of things. I feel like it changed a bit too much from the base game, but it was still nice. It was still fun. I still enjoyed it. I would only recommend it, and it is barely recommended. I'm tempted to drop it into meh, but it was okay. I'm going to defer to my chat here because a large number of you are saying that it's meh, so I'm going to go by the majority decision here, and I'll drop it down to meh. I'll put it to the top of meh, because I did say I'd recommend it, but if the majority of you are saying like it's meh, then I'll put it to meh. That's fair. We have made it to the final group. It's the final countdown, copyright, which is Final Fantasy. We played 6 Final Fantasies this year. We started with Final Fantasy 6. So we did Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. So we did 6 Final Fantasies. I've been working my way through the Final Fantasy series for the first time ever. The only one I'd ever played before was 10, like to completion was 10. I played a little bit of 12 and a little bit of 13, but I'd only finished 10. I'd never touched any of the other games. Last year in 2023, because as I'm filming this, it's the last couple of days of 24. In 2023, we played 1 through 5. We started Final Fantasy 6 like 2 days before the start of 2024, so that's why I held off on reviewing it. Final Fantasy 6 was where we started, and for me, I think if you like RPGs, you like Final Fantasy, it goes into a must-play, but the bottom of must-play. For me, Final Fantasy 6 is the second or third best Final Fantasy that I've played so far. It's the second or third best Final Fantasy that I've played so far. I think it's really, really good. I think the only thing that lets it down is just how many party members there are. There's like 9 or 10 party members if you get all the optional ones. But I think it's a must-play for anybody who likes RPGs, who likes the Final Fantasy genre, like the JRPGs, of like that kind of thing. I think it's a must-play, honestly. Final Fantasy 7 was the next one, because obviously, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Final Fantasy 7, I had heard nothing but praise for Final Fantasy 7. Whenever you hear Final Fantasy from somebody, and you've not played Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 7 is the best game ever, it's the best JRPG ever, it's the best Final Fantasy ever, It's not as good as 6. It's not as good as 6. It drops down to like here. It's better than Shining Pearl, but it drops down to like there. Final Fantasy 7 is a good game, a solid game. I highly recommend it. But it's not as good as people make it out to be. The nostalgia is so strong with Final Fantasy 7. I get for its time it was revolutionary and everything, but Final Fantasy 7 just doesn't carry the weight that people claim that it carries. yeah, something can be revolutionary for its time, but that doesn't mean it's still revolutionary going forwards, right? I think 6, in terms of its story, its gameplay, and all that kind of thing, I think 7 is weaker than 6. I think 7's weaker than 6. I think story and gameplay, 6 beats 7. However, Final Fantasy VIII is pure trash. Final Fantasy VIII is pure trash. Pure trash. Final Fantasy VIII took everything that worked in Final Fantasy and went, yeah, stop that, threw it out the window and completely changed everything about the gameplay mechanics, right? I mean, hey, again, this is all subjective. Some of you have gone, oh my god, and hit dislike or left the stream or whatever. 8 is bad, right? From a gameplay point of view and from a storytelling point of view, 8 is bad. Final Fantasy is an RPG. RPG have certain mechanics that are integral to it. If you have a magic-based system, why are you making it so that you have to collect quantities of magic and apply them to your stats in order to boost those stats? That dissuades me from using the magic, because if I use my, I don't know, fire spell to increase my attack, every time I use a fire spell, the stat goes down because I have less fire spells. Oh, why would I use fire spells then? Why would I use my magic? Why would I even use my magic? Right? Why would I use my magic if it's going to like hurt me? Like stats wise, I could forgive that. I could forgive it if it wasn't for the story, right? The story is the worst story I've experienced in Final Fantasy so far. It's the worst story that I've experienced so far. Before this became my job, before playing games and reviewing games and all the other stuff that I do, before all of that became my job, I was an English language and literature teacher. The key bit there being literature. I taught literature. I taught how to analyze stories. I taught how to write creatively. I taught it. It was my career. It was my profession. I am telling you right now, from a professional standpoint, it's a bad story. And the reason why it's a bad story is because it commits one of the cardinal sins of storytelling that goes hand in hand with "it was all a dream." It was amnesia, right? Final Fantasy has an obsession with amnesia. I don't know why they have an obsession with amnesia, but they have an obsession with amnesia. I think ever since like Final Fantasy 5 or 6, almost every single Final Fantasy has had amnesia to some extent, right? There's only really 2 or 3 of the core games since 5 or 6 that hasn't had amnesia, right? It is a cop-out. If you cannot think of a way to explain your story other than "it was all a dream, it was all amnesia, but he woke up and it was all a dream," you can't think of a way to get out of that other than amnesia, "it was a dream," all that kind of stuff, then you've written a bad story. And Final Fantasy VIII takes that and amplifies it, because while the majority of Final Fantasy games have amnesia, Final Fantasy VIII, everybody has amnesia. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry to spoil this, I'm spoiling it. If you don't want to hear it, skip forward like 20 seconds if you're watching this on YouTube. Everyone except for one of the party members has amnesia. They all went to the same damn orphanage as each other, and none of them can remember each other. Except for the cowboy guy who remembered before the rest of them and assumed they just weren't talking about it. It's unbelievably lazy. And then on top of that, before the 20-second skippers come back, they then threw in time travel as well, which is another cardinal sin. Time travel is such a dodgy thing to go into. If you're going to do time travel, you've got to be so careful with it, and they were not careful with it. It does everything that you shouldn't do in literature. And yet some people were praising it relentlessly as I was playing it, going, oh, this is such an amazing game. Oh, I love this game. It's like, really? Really? No. Final Fantasy VIII is trash. But 9? Yeah, 9. Yeah, Final Fantasy 9. Yeah, it's a must play, just below 6. It's just below 6. Nine's great. Nine's phenomenal. Nine, I'd argue. So, throughout my whole experience of playing Final Fantasy, keep in mind, I had never played Final Fantasy before except for 10 to completion, right? When I went into playing Final Fantasy, I had an image in my mind about what old school Final Fantasy would be. Based solely on my experience of Final Fantasy X, I had a set image in my head of this is what I expect old school Final Fantasy to be. And I didn't get that image until I hit Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX is exactly what I thought all the previous 8 were going to be. The style, the comedy, all that kind of stuff. It's a must play. I am going to do something right now which is going to hurt a lot of you, and I apologize for it, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done. 6 and 9 lose points here, and they move down here to highly recommend. They would be absolute must-plays for everybody, not just RPG fans, if it wasn't for one issue that gets resolved in 10. 10 resolves it, right? Final Fantasy 6 and 9 have the same problem that 7 has, and that 8 has, and that all the previous ones have. They lore dump. There is nothing more boring than sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes, with Final Fantasy 8, and just getting lore dumped. Right? Where they just go, oh, by the way, we've not explained all this to you. Let's just dump a load of information on you for the next 30 to 60 minutes. There is nothing more boring, right? Made more true by the fact that a lot of you, when I was playing these games, were going, yeah, I normally just click through it. You're clicking through the story. You're openly admitting that the story is so boring that you're clicking through it. And you're there going like, that's the best game I've ever played. If it's the best game you've ever played, you'd be reading it. You'd be hanging on every word. But you're not. You're spam clicking through that lore. So, for that reason alone, they both get knocked off of must play and into highly recommended. Right? Final Fantasy X resolves it, and 12 also resolves it. 12 creeps back into it a little bit, but 12 also doesn't have it. And I feel like it's from the voice acting time, right? Final Fantasy X, I didn't play 10-2, even though I did play the 10-2 remaster. Final Fantasy X goes into the must play. It goes into the must play. For me, 10 is the best Final Fantasy I've played so far. And it's not even nostalgia talking, it just is the best. It just is the best one. Because I'd forgotten like 95% of Final Fantasy X, because I only finished it once. I'd forgotten like 95% of Final Fantasy X. It's great. It's a fantastic game. If you're going to play out of the 12, well, 11, because I didn't play 11 because it's an MMO. Out of the 11 that I've played so far, if you're going to play any of them, play 10. Because it's just so... It's so new player accessible. I feel like Final Fantasy 1 through 9 had the issue of kind of like, it has its niche audience and it's kind of not willing to branch out. And then 10 went, no, do you know what? We're going to make ourselves a little bit more non-Final Fantasy fan friendly and make it so that you can come into this having no real experience with Final Fantasy and still enjoy it, because it's just, it makes sense. It's got a little bit of complications here and there, a little bit complicated bits and pieces, but overall it's very accessible. I think it's just great. I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic game. Out of the Final Fantasy series, I think it's the best one. Last game, which is also the last game that I finished for the year, Final Fantasy 12. Nah, I'll put it to like the bottom of meh as well. It's meh. It's meh. It's meh. Like, it's not worse than 8. I saw some people saying it's trash. I get that. I do get that. I'm tempted to put it into don't recommend. But I'm going to keep it in meh for one simple reason. It embodies the category of meh. It embodies the category of meh. Because every single moment of me playing through 12, I've gone, eh. The entire time. Eh. Like, I'm there looking, oh, we got a prison break now. Eh. Like, oh, this is happening. Eh. The entire time. It was the meh of meh. Like, I'm just there going, the entire time. If you asked me what the story was, I go, like, who's your favourite character? Like, it's just meh. It really is. And that's all I can say about it. Final Fantasy 12 is meh. Characters, meh. Game design, meh. Story, meh. Like, it's just meh. Still never got the hype for Final Fantasy at all. It's fair. So I've been playing through it for the first time. The reason I chose Final Fantasy was I've always been the Pokemon guy. I've always loved Pokemon, and I was like, I want to have a series that's similar. It's in the same ballpark, but it's also a beloved franchise that has a lot of games in it, and I want to see what all the hype is about. I considered Dragon Quest, I considered Zelda and Mario and that kind of thing, but I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with the RPG-ness of it, and I'm gonna go for Final Fantasy, which, at least in the West, Final Fantasy is more popular than Dragon Quest. I know I'm from what I've heard, in Japan it's the other way around. Dragon Quest is more popular than Final Fantasy, but in the West, Final Fantasy is the more popular of the two. So I was there like, okay, I will try Final Fantasy because I want to see what the hype is about, because it's a beloved franchise, right? So far, it's very much been a sort of thing for me. I've not found one that I've been gripped on. 10 is the closest so far. I'm 3 from done. I'm 3 from done. I've got 13, 15, and 16 left. And I'm just there like, Let me just have a look and see if I'm going to shuffle anything around. And then we're going to go for my game of the year and your game of the year. Which one do we think was the worst game of the year? Do we think Love Choice or Halo 5 was the worst game of the year that we finished? Now, we're only including the ones that are in pure trash. Because I didn't finish the others, and don't recommend, can't be worse than pure trash, right? Final Fantasy VIII, aka Final Fantasy Amnesia Edition, Love Choice, aka the worst choices you could make in a relationship, or Halo 5, but no Master Chief. Halo 5 this time featuring someone who kind of resembles Master Chief. Yeah, that's absolutely destroyed it. Love Choice, congratulations, Love Choice, you are the worst game of the year.
This is fine.
Hey, woo! So, worst game of the year, congratulations, Love Choice. The game that teaches you how not to be in a healthy relationship. 3 times, because once wasn't enough. Well done, Love Choice. You are the worst game of the year. Now we get to decide my game of the year and your game of the year. I'm going to do mine first, because it eliminates one of your choices. For me, out of these 7 were all phenomenal. For me, there was one that was like the clear winner for a long time. There was one that was the clear winner for a long time, and then another game just overtook it immediately. So my personal game of the year is Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 was the best game I played all year by a mile. There was one that was going to win. It was a very clear winner in my mind, and then Hellblade 2 came in and just stole the win for me. So Hellblade 2, my game of the year. But what we're going to do, nobody saw that coming from a mile away, right? What we're going to do now is I'm going to take these 6, put them in the poll, and you can vote for who your game of the year is. I tell you what, that is a pretty close vote. That is a pretty close vote. Let me just move it over here so I can have a look at it while you're chatting. That is close. Ooh, that is very close. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. It Takes Two.
Yes! Yes!
With Jedi Survivor and Kenner Bridge of Spirits being dangerously close, It Takes Two wins the Doo-Doo Head Game of the Year. With Jedi Survivor and Kenner Bridge of Spirits being the next highest voted 2, followed by The Forgotten City, then Slay the Princess, then Cocoon. So there you go. Our worst game of the year is Love Choice. Our game of the year for me is Hellblade 2, for you is It Takes Two.